Chapter 726. The Yuan Zhen stage is already an existence that you can't reach. But today, I will let you know the true strength of the sacred mountain. It is an existence that you can only look at but not reach. I will let you know what it means to be a frog in a well. Ouyang Jinwei coldly said. She could sense that the brat before her had definitely not reached the Yuan Zhen stage. There was a huge gap between the Yuan Zhen stage and the Yuan Spirit stage. It was like the difference between heaven and earth. Just the difference in origin qi between the two of them was enough to make them incomparable. Ouyang Jinwei stared at Su Yi as her pale golden pupils turned extremely cold. Her cheeks were ice cold and her gloomy expression became even more intense. She did not hide the killing intent in her eyes. Then, Ouyang Jinwei formed another hand seal. This hand seal was very strange and mysterious. Suddenly, Ouyang Jinwei's fragrant tongue slightly extended from her red lips, revealing an invisible charm. She clenched her teeth and spat out a wisp of dark red blood from the tip of her tongue. Swoosh! This wisp of dark red blood was immediately wrapped in the light of Ouyang Jinwei's hand seal and swept into the space between her eyebrows. Boom! When the light entered the space between Ouyang Jinwei's eyebrows, a sacred radiance suddenly spread out from her body. Suddenly, the level 1 Yuan Zhen stage aura within Ouyang Jinwei's body rose by a lot. Under the cover of the sacred radiance, Ouyang Jinwei's graceful body suddenly seemed to be covered by a layer of shadow. The shadow was hazy and grew from the ground. In the end, it grew to a height of several feet and enveloped Ouyang Jinwei's body. That illusory figure was hazy and incomparably divine. One could still see that it was a graceful body, as if an ancient goddess had descended. Her eyes were like two bright moons, mixed with a merciless and indifferent coldness. Surging Yuan Qi was like a storm, accompanied by a shocking ancient pressure. The appearance of this shadow caused the eyes of the people in the square to tremble. Many people who were not strong enough already had their Yuan Qi blocked, and their souls were also trembling in their minds. This pressure was extremely terrifying. Such a shadow was like an ancient goddess descending, bringing with it a terrifying pressure. It was incomparably sacred, causing the energy in the area to become chaotic. What is this? What a terrifying aura! The crowd cried out in surprise. Ouyang Jinwei revealing her true cultivation was already enough to stupefy everyone. At this moment, Ouyang Jinwei once again used her trump card, shocking everyone. How terrifying was this aura? Could it be the terrifying power of the holy mountain? But Ouyang Jinwei isn't the holy son or holy daughter of the holy mountain. Among the young disciples of Xinjian Gate, Situ Muyang's clear eyes were also filled with seriousness. At this moment, even Mu Yao's beautiful eyes were filled with ripples as she looked at the illusory figure connected to Ouyang Jinwei. In the center of this terrifying pressure, Su Yi stared at Ouyang Jinwei. The incomparably sacred aura spread out, making Su Yi feel uncomfortable all over. Even the primordial origin supreme in his body began to surge. The sacred mountain does indeed have extraordinary means. At this moment, Su Yi was stating the facts. There was naturally a reason why the sacred mountain could become the #1 faction in the Central Plains. At this moment, Ouyang Jinwei's means were already extraordinary. This means was extraordinary, and it could even raise one's aura out of nowhere. Feeling the aura on Ouyang Jinwei's body, Su Yi was also secretly trembling. This should be Ouyang Jinwei's full strength. At this moment, under Ouyang Jinwei's full strength, an average level 1 Yuan Zhen realm cultivator would be no match for her. Holy Ruler Aura. Ouyang Jinwei actually has the Holy Ruler Aura. Vice Palace Master Guanlan, Vice Palace Master Yenlu, Vice Palace Master Yunding, and the rest of the Imperial Sky Palace experts, including Merciless West, were all shocked. Bing Cauldron, is Ouyang Jinwei the Holy Mountain Holy Daughter? Cool Craftsman Online Photoshop? Old Man Gue was also very surprised, and asked Elder Bing Cauldron directly. Only the holy ruler aura of the holy mountain's holy sons and holy daughters had it. Haha, Jinwei is not a holy daughter, but she was only one step away from becoming a holy daughter. She also obtained some opportunities, so her body was also contaminated with our holy mountain's holy ruler aura. Elder Bing Cauldron laughed. If Ouyang Jinwei's level 1 Yuan Zhen realm cultivation was her trump card, then the holy ruler aura that she used now was the real killer move. In Elder Bing Cauldron's heart, even if he took a step back, if Yi Su could still defeat Ouyang Jinwei, then he really was qualified to be Ouyang Jinwei's husband. Hearing this, Old Man Gyue, Vice Palace Master Guanlan, and the rest frowned secretly. They naturally knew how powerful the Holy Mountain's holy ruler aura was. The huge illusory figure grew from the ground, and in the two cold moon-like eyes, Ouyang Jinwei stared at Su Yi. A cold and proud voice came from the huge illusory figure, carrying a kind of sacred and majestic aura. Boy, now you should know what it means to be a frog in a well. The cold voice was like a divine voice at this moment, buzzing and sonorous. Ouyang Jinwei's huge, sacred illusory figure trembled, the sacred aura overflowed to the sky. Su Yi's eyes trembled. At this moment, he could feel that under the sacred aura, there was an extreme destructive power contained. The aura on Ouyang Jinwei's body was terrifying, and it seemed that if he didn't use his full strength, it would be difficult for him to escape unscathed. Then let's try a new method, it shouldn't be weak. Su Yi muttered under his breath as he quietly formed a seal in his hand. As Su Yi's hand seals condensed, his skin began to emit a kind of clear and translucent brilliance for no reason. His pair of deep and bright eyes began to gush out a whirlpool of light, flashing with multicolored light. In an instant, an ancient aura spread out from Su Yi's body like undulating waves, as if it could suppress all directions, spreading inside and outside the square. When the aura fluctuated, Ouyang Jinwei was the first to sense it. Her moon-like eyes rippled. She could feel that the aura was unusual. It seemed that the boy also had a trump card. Boom. Soon, Ouyang Jinwei made her move. She didn't want to delay any longer and was afraid of causing trouble. She wanted to defeat the boy directly, in the most direct and straightforward way, to save the face just now. She raised her hand and shook her arm, surging yuan qi surging like a hurricane. No matter what, you can't change anything. Under the sage ruler seal, you will be defeated. With a deep shout, Ouyang Jinwei shook her arm, and the huge palm fell like a dark cloud covering the sky. Boom! The palm covered the sky, and the wind and clouds surged, causing the energy of heaven and earth to become chaotic. Accompanied by a terrifying force, it slammed down towards Su Yi like a bolt of lightning. When such a palm fell, a terrifying aura spread out, as if from ancient times. Chapter 727. Walala, as the handprint fell, the surrounding shadows fluctuated, and a series of low sonic booms resounded in the air. With Su Yi as the center, the ground around him exploded, and the thick stone slabs shattered one after another. The scene was horrifying. How terrifying! Countless voices in the crowd exclaimed. At this moment, many people were on tenterhooks for Su Yi, and their hearts were in their throats. Ouyang Jinwei's attack was too terrifying, and it could destroy everything. Could Su Yi withstand it? Everything happened too quickly. That terrifying palm imprint directly slammed down, covering Su Yi's head, bringing with it the power of destruction as it slammed down. Under countless gazes, they were praying for Su Yi. Under such a handprint, even a cultivator at the 3rd or 4th level of Yuan Zhen stage would not dare to resist it directly. As the handprint covered Su Yi, the ground around him exploded. Sand and stones flew, turning into deep pits, and cracks spread out on the ground. This time, Yi Su is going to be killed. Some people's hearts trembled, and they sighed. Under this attack, Su Yi would be smashed into meat paste. An extraordinary soul controller was going to vanish like smoke, like a night-blooming cactus flower. No wonder it was said that talent was one thing, but growth was another. From ancient times until now, there had been countless people with peerless talent who had died young before they could grow to their full potential. Sacred Mountain is worthy of being called Sacred Mountain. Many people's eyes were filled with pity. Isu was definitely going to die when the handprint fell. Isu, a strong dark horse, could have shone in the sacred martial assembly, but after offending Sacred Mountain, he would be cut in half at the waist in the end. Sacred Mountain was a colossus, the sacred land of the central state. The disciples from Sacred Mountain could not be compared to those from the outside world, no matter how strong they were. This was the terror of Sacred Mountain. The terrifying handprint brought the energy of heaven and earth into chaos, crushing and destroying everything. Under such a destructive scene, even merciless West and Green Emperor were secretly moved, and they began to worry. Elder Gue, the palace master, and the others also frowned. Rumble, the surrounding square exploded continuously. Everything was razed to the ground, and the aura was like a storm. Under everyone's nervous gazes, that terrifying palm print suddenly stopped less than a foot away from Su Yi's head. This scene caused everyone to be astonished. Under the terrifying palm print, the Bawang Sek's Isu did not turn into minced meat. On the other hand, the terrifying giant handprint seemed to be unable to move an inch further above Isu's head. Isu doesn't seem to be normal. Someone cried out in surprise. At this moment, a shocking change was happening to that unprepossessing young man. Under countless gazes, the aura around Isu fluctuated, and an ancient aura spread. Accompanied by a torrential aura, it shot out from his body and swept through the world. At this moment, a red light rose from Su Yi's body like a rising sun, dazzling heaven and earth. The red light surged like an erupting volcano. Rumble! Heaven and earth rumbled. Under the red light, Su Yi was enveloped from head to toe, drowning in it. The red light overflowed, and the light was monstrous. The pressure was pervasive, spreading in all directions like a storm. Under the shocked gazes of countless people, crimson light surged around Su Yi's body and condensed into a crimson ferocious tiger that seemed like a living creature. The ferocious tiger looked like a living creature. It was about to pounce, and it blocked the terrifying handprint above its head, preventing it from moving an inch further. When the red tiger condensed, lightning flashed and thunder rumbled in the small square, and it emitted an unparalleled pressure. This terrifying aura faintly suppressed Ouyang Jinwei's sage ruler aura. It was shocking. This sudden change caused everyone to be stunned. Elder Bingchao, Quang Guilan, Ouyang Yuanfeng, and the others were shocked. They could all feel how terrifying Isu's aura was at this moment. Most Yu New F Chapter Part 1 Elder Gue, Vice Palace Master Guanlan, and Merciless West's expressions changed one after another. The light cyan youth's eyes were no longer calm, and the hazy light fell on Su Yi's body. Ouyang Jinwei's bright moon-like cold eyes suddenly jumped, as if she felt something. Roar! The ferocious tiger roared. The tiger's roar was sonorous, like the sound of wind and thunder, ear-splitting. The ferocious tiger's red light overflowed into the sky, and the ancient aura was accompanied by a terrifying aura. It was like a red thunderbolt that rushed to the heavens, and its power was terrifying. It brought with it red clouds that surged through the world, shaking the entire central state city, and intimidating people's souls. At this moment, the roars of many beasts were like thunder in various parts of central state city. They were intimidated by the pressure and prostrated themselves. The savage scripture was power, the heavenly tiger art was momentum, and the demon spirit truth was spirit. Momentum was heaven, power was earth, spirit was man, heaven was momentum, power came from the earth, and man was the ancestor of spirits. At this moment, Su Yi was using the heavenly tiger force of the heavenly tiger art that he had recently comprehended. He wanted to be prepared for emergencies during the sacred martial assembly. Su-yi had used many methods from the Origin Supreme technique and the Heavenly Fei ancient scripture before at the Xinjian Gate and outside. The entire Central State's younger generation would participate in this sacred martial assembly. Su-yi was afraid that his identity would be exposed, so to avoid trouble, he had also comprehended some new method. The Heavenly Fei ancient scripture was all-encompassing. During the time he was in Central State City, Su-yi had also comprehended the Heavenly Tiger Force of the Heavenly Tiger Art. The Heavenly Tiger Force was the most advanced martial technique in the Heavenly Tiger Art. It used momentum as power to suppress all directions. The Heavenly Tiger's aura was formed. Su-yi raised his eyes and the red ferocious tiger raised its head. Its ferocious eyes surged with a whirlpool-like radiance. An ancient aura spread out like the rising and falling of the waves, capable of suppressing the world in all directions. Looking at the huge handprint above its head, a domineering and arrogant voice came out like a tiger's roar. "Stop pretending to be mysterious. Break for me." With a shout, the red tiger suddenly raised its claw and slammed down on the huge handprint that was crushing down on Ouyang Jinwei. At this moment, the red tiger's aura reached its peak. Everyone's eyes were shaken. This aura was too strong. It was like a rainbow that rolled out, causing people's hearts to palpitate. Many cultivators who were not strong enough could not help but feel their souls tremble. This aura came from heaven and earth, affecting the energy of heaven and earth. Chi-la-la, the tiger claw split the sky. Under countless gazes, it was in a stalemate with the handprint for a moment before tearing the handprint apart. Following that, the tiger claw reached out and landed on the huge and graceful sacred phantom, shattering the sacred aura on the hazy phantom. The phantom shattered, disintegrating inch by inch, revealing Ouyang Jinwei's body. The tiger claw also dissipated under the impact of the sacred aura, but in the end, the tiger claw still landed on Ouyang Jinwei's shoulder, who could not dodge in time. Chapter 728. Pft! Ouyang Jinwei's body was also sent flying, crashing heavily into the gravel pit several feet away. Her face was covered in dust, and her complexion was extremely pale in an instant. Ouyang Jinwei's body was drenched in blood, and she kept vomiting blood. Her pale golden eyes, which were originally cold and arrogant, had been completely replaced by shock and astonishment. Ouyang Jinwei couldn't believe that she had actually lost. She originally wanted to defeat the young man in front of her in the most direct way to redeem her face, and let him know that he was just a frog in a well in front of her. But now, how could Ouyang Jinwei accept that she had actually lost, and lost so miserably and decisively? She had used all her strength, but she had actually lost in such a way, and it was a crushing defeat. Everything calmed down. The wind blew, the clouds surged, the tiger's roar resounded, the lightning flashed, and the monstrous aura dissipated. However, the scene in the square froze. For no reason, the entire square was silent. Everyone's eyes were wide open, and they were dumbfounded. They couldn't believe Su-yi. Ouyang Feng, Quang Guilan, Elder Bingchao, and the others from the Sacred Mountain and the City Lord's mansion were so shocked that their eyes almost popped out of their sockets. Everyone's gaze fell on Su-yi as if they had seen a ghost. Ouyang Jinwei, the representative of the Sacred Mountain's younger generation, was extremely powerful. She had even used her Saint Ruler's Qi, erupted with a terrifying aura and combat strength, and used her strongest trump card, but she was still defeated in an instant and was directly defeated. It was supposed to be a warm-up before the Sacred Martial Assembly officially began. It was the most exciting opening before the Sacred Martial Assembly, and it made everyone's blood boil with anticipation. But who would have thought that at the most anticipated moment, Ouyang Jinwei would be stopped abruptly in such a way, and she was directly defeated. If someone had lost, everyone would have thought that it was Yi Su from the Bawang sect. Although Yi Su from the Bawang sect was a strong dark horse, How could he be compared to the outstanding disciples of the sacred mountain's younger generation? But now, the result was too sudden. Everyone was silent, as if time had stopped flowing. With one move, Ouyang Jinwei had unleashed her strongest combat strength in an attempt to regain her face. However, the originally unknown Bawang sex, Yi Su, had defeated her in a single move. It was a clean and unstoppable victory. That kind of momentum suppressed the surroundings, and his style was unparalleled. Many people knew that Yi Su was rumored to be a soul controller. Furthermore, he had a soul quality that only existed in legends. His strongest ability should be a soul controller. However, the method Yi Su had used to defeat Ouyang Jinwei with a single move was not the terrifying method of a soul controller. Instead, it was the most direct form of combat power. Furthermore, it was only a single move, and Ouyang Jinwei had been severely injured and defeated. Countless people stared with their eyes wide open, their jaws hanging open for a long time. How can he be so strong? Among the group of young disciples from the Xinjian Gate, Situ Muyang, Ryugan River, O Luo Gu Chenyu, and the others were also shocked. Mu Yao, Ying Qianqian, Gong Qi, and the other beautiful women also had expressions of shock crawling onto their moving faces. In the square, the seemingly ordinary young man from the unknown Bawang sect had his black hair fluttering slightly. There was an invisible air of arrogance around him, and his whole body was exuding an unparalleled aura of dominance and ferocity. He's actually quite handsome. Inside and outside the square, many young women were also looking at the young man. Ripples appeared in their eyes, and they were moved. Did you guys notice that when Yi Su made his move, it was a bit similar to young Marshal Granduncle? Situ Muyang muttered in a low voice. There was some doubt on his shocked face. The aura of Yi Su's move just now made him feel that it was somewhat similar to young Marshal Granduncle. He had personally fought with him before. Is that so? Gu Chenyu, Ryugan River, and the others heard this and pondered. It seems that there are some similarities. Gong Qi's red lips opened slightly. She had also fought with Su Yi before, and carefully felt the aura of Yi Su's move just now. There were indeed some similarities. Then, many people's eyes fell on Mu Yao. If there was one person present who understood Su Yi the most, it would be Mu Yao. There are some similarities. Mu Yao nodded. Old Man Gue, Vice Palace Master Guanlan, and the others were also dumbfounded at this moment. They knew best how terrifying the Saint Ruler Qi was, but the young man in front of them had used an even more powerful method to defeat it directly. Su Yi stood in the middle of the field. His hair was a little messy and his face was pale. The power of the heavenly tiger force was as great as he had imagined. It seemed to be even more powerful than the ancient Crimson Seal. However, the consumption of energy was also very shocking. Su Yi estimated that if it were not for the fact that he had tempered the Great Void Divine Ocean twice, and the Origin Qi Whirlpool was much stronger than that of an ordinary 9th-level Origin Spirit Stage practitioner, he would not have been able to withstand such consumption. Do you still want to fight? Looking at Ouyang Jinwei, who was lying dozens of feet away, Su Yi's face was calm. There was a domineering and arrogant aura, and a faint chill in his eyes. Ouyang Jinwei struggled to get up, but it was difficult for her to do so. Her pale golden eyes had dimmed significantly, and her red lips were dyed red with blood. Blood flowed continuously, adding to her poignant beauty. Ouyang Jinwei opened her mouth, as if she wanted to say something to Su Yi, but she could not say anything. Her mouth was full of blood. Then, in Ouyang Jinwei's beautiful eyes, there was shock, astonishment, humiliation, and resentment all tangled together in an instant. She was really unwilling to accept this. She was an outstanding talent among the younger generation of Sacred Mountain disciples. Back then, she was only one step away from entering the ranks of saintesses and becoming one of them. But even though she was only one step away, she was still tainted with the Saint Ruler Qi, and became an outstanding talent among the younger generation of Sacred Mountain, one of the strongest disciples. But now, she had actually been defeated by an unknown disciple of the Overlord sect. Moreover, she had been defeated in such a miserable and humiliating manner. It seems that you are no longer able to fight. You have lost. Su-yi looked straight at Ouyang Jinwei, his indifferent voice reverberating in the square. Ha 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 ha, you are indeed a young hero, a genius. Chapter 729. With that, Elder Bingchao looked at Ouyang Yuanfeng and Quang Guilan and said, "Congratulations to City Lord Ouyang and niece Guilan. Such a good son-in-law is a waste pond item. When the time comes, the elders on the Sacred Mountain will be very happy." This wasn't the result he wanted. If Isu had died in Ouyang Jinwei's hands, Yutian Palace would have nothing to say and Sacred Mountain's face would be saved. How could Isu be Ouyang Jinwei's opponent? But now, the result had completely exceeded Elder Icebot's original expectations. This was different. After Elder Icebot recovered from his shock, he realized that Isu had really defeated Ouyang Jinwei. Furthermore, he had defeated her in such a shocking manner. While he was shocked, he also realized that this youth called Isu was even more talented than he had imagined. Even in the entire Sacred Mountain, such talent could be said to be at the top without any hesitation, not to mention that he was a sole controller. He couldn't get rid of such a genius today, so it was worth a second olive branch. Since this brat had taken a fancy to Ouyang Jinwei's beauty, even if she could only be a concubine, it didn't matter as long as he could rope her into Sacred Mountain. Ouyang Yuanfeng smiled rather awkwardly at Elder Binko's words. His daughter had actually been defeated. Isu was so strong. Now that things had come to this, there was nothing he could do. Quang Guilan's eyes were cold and ruthless. She immediately rushed to her daughter Ouyang Jinwei's side and helped her up. She was coughing up blood. Elder Gue and Vice Palace Lord Guanlan were surprised and happy, but they still frowned slightly after hearing Elder Binko's words. How could Gue and the others not know Elder Binko's meaning? This was clearly Elder Bingchao seeing Isu's potential and talent and wanted to rope him in by hook or by crook. Such a youth was even more powerful than they had imagined. If Yutian Palace's headquarters knew about this, it would set off a great uproar. If such a youth was taken away by Sacred Mountain right under their noses, it would be a great loss to Yutian Palace. Isu, after the Sacred Martial Assembly, returned to the Sacred Mountain with Jin Wei. Your marriage will be a grand occasion for the Sacred Mountain, and also a grand occasion for the Central Region. At that time, you will also be a disciple of the Sacred Mountain. You will be able to obtain all the resources of the Sacred Mountain. With your talent, the experts of the Sacred Mountain will guide you diligently. In the future, you will be able to leap over the Dragon Gate and soar into the sky. Elder Bingchao continued to speak while looking at Isu. His eyes were full of confidence. As long as one wasn't a fool, they would know what it meant. What could be more tempting than this? To be able to embrace a beauty and obtain all the resources of Sacred Mountain, as well as the guidance of the experts on Sacred Mountain, such an opportunity was something that many people in Central Continent yearned for even in their dreams. No one could resist such a temptation. Quang Guilan supported her severely injured daughter and stuffed a good healing pill into her mouth. Listening to Elder Binko's words, she knew his intentions. Although there was extreme hatred and unwillingness in her heart, she also knew that this was for the sake of the entire Sacred Mountain. This Isu was indeed talented and could obtain all the resources on Sacred Mountain. In time, he would indeed be able to stand out among his peers. Judging from his actions just now, his talent might not be below Chu Zhanghuan's. If he could really become a member of the Ouyang family and become her son-in-law, as long as this brat respected her in the future, she could reluctantly endure it. Humph! Quang Guilan coldly snorted and glanced at Su-yi, coldly saying, "It's not impossible for you to marry my daughter, but your original marriage contract should be immediately cancelled. My daughter cannot share her husband. It's already difficult for you to marry my daughter. This Isu really succeeded. From now on, he will reach the heavens in a single bound. Many of the onlookers around the square also came back to their senses, watching the lively scene with astonishment. This Bawang sex Isu really succeeded. If he really married Ouyang Jinwei, it would really be killing two birds with one stone. From now on, he would have Sacred Mountain as his backer and reach the heavens in a single bound. This Isu is really beautiful, and is also an outstanding talent among the younger generation of Sacred Mountain disciples. It is said that her grandmother's status on Sacred Mountain is not simple. This Isu can be considered lucky. Among the crowd, there were some whispers and envy from some young people. There was no doubt that Ouyang Jinwei was also a beauty. Many young people were already secretly drooling, prostrating themselves at her feet at a glance. Coupled with Ouyang Jinwei's background, how many young people could resist this temptation? _C Original Edition, Chapter 3. Cr on Ly. Amidst the envy and jealousy of the crowd, Su Yi laughed loudly. His gaze swept past Elder Bing Fu and Quang Guilin, then landed on Ouyang Jinwei. What, Swan? You can't even withstand a single blow. I think you're just a pheasant. I have no interest in a woman like you. Let's forget about the marriage contract. His indifferent voice resounded and spread all around, stunning the crowd. No one expected that Isu would reject such a temptation so straightforwardly. Su Yi's words fell into Ouyang Jinwei's ears. Looking at the gazes of the crowd, it was the biggest mockery she had ever felt in her life. Apart from Naran Ryu and a few other young men from the Sacred Mountain, she had never placed any other man in her eyes. Countless young talents had prostrated themselves at her feet, enough to line up from the Sacred Mountain all the way to Central Continent City. She had never even raised her eyes. However, Isu had actually humiliated her in such a manner and wanted to bet on the marriage. At that moment, he had used the method that she found most difficult to accept to severely injure and defeat her, and even disdained to marry her. This was the greatest humiliation and mockery of her life. With resentment and unwillingness in her heart, Ouyang Jinwei could no longer hold back. She spat out another mouthful of blood. Her blood surged and she fainted. Jinwei, Quang Guilin turned pale with fright. She checked on her beloved daughter, and found out that she had fainted due to an attack of qi and blood. She glared at Su Yi coldly and said, "Brat, if anything happens to my daughter, I will tear you into pieces." Ouyang Yuanfeng's expression greatly changed. He immediately rushed to his daughter's side and checked her condition. Then, he looked at Su Yi from afar with an ugly expression. When young people compete, accidents are bound to happen. Injuries are unavoidable. It seems like the outcome has been decided. Chapter 730. Elder Binko's forced smile slowly turned gloomy. He had repeatedly extended an olive branch, and as a dignified holy mountain elder, he had to lower his stance, but this brat was so arrogant that he didn't even put him in his eyes. It seemed that this brat really couldn't be left alive. With this kind of talent, if he really matured one day, and had the backing of Heavenly Command Palace, he would be a great threat to Holy Mountain. Su Yi didn't care about all the gazes around him. His eyes fell on a middle-aged man outside the city lord's mansion. It was the same middle-aged man who registered him not long ago. He asked, "I've already passed the test, so the registration is successful." Being stared at by Su Yi, the middle-aged man in the crowd was also frightened. His eyes turned deathly white, and he immediately looked towards City Lord Ouyang Yuanfeng. At this moment, how could he dare to say anything? $, of course the registration was successful, everything was just a misunderstanding. Ouyang Yuanfeng suppressed the ugly expression on his face and nodded at Su Yi. He then secretly signaled to the middle-aged man. The middle-aged man walked forward. He was a Yuan Zhen stage cultivator, close to the Yuan Su stage, but for some reason, looking at this young man in front of him, he felt his heart tremble. He didn't dare to look straight at him. He secretly gritted his teeth and walked forward, handing the jade token that was originally used for the test to Su Yi. Receiving the jade token, Su Yi held it in his hand, then turned around and left the stage. When he arrived next to Old Man Gua, Vice Palace Master Guanlan, and the others, he bowed and said, "This brat is untalented, and has caused trouble for everyone." Su Yi was very serious. Today, he had indeed caused trouble for Old Man Gua, Vice Palace Master Guanlan, and the others. If not for Old Man Gua and the others, the City Lord and Ice Cauldron of Holy Mountain would definitely not have let him go. Thinking of the consequences, Su Yi couldn't help but feel some lingering fear. After all, he was still too young and rash, and had a moment of arrogance. Today, if not for Old Man Gua and the others' attention, with the attitude of Holy Mountain and the City Lord's mansion, he would definitely be doomed. Haha, no trouble, no trouble. Looking at the young man in front of him, Gua laughed heartily. How could he find it troublesome? This young man was even more talented than he had imagined. He had a heaven-grade soul and a monstrous physical body. Even Sacred Mountain didn't try to recruit him. With this young man's character, even if he didn't join Imperial Heavenly Palace in the future, he would at least have a good relationship with Imperial Heavenly Palace. The strongest relationship was not the icing on the cake, but the timely help. Before this young man had grown up, he had given him a helping hand. One day, when this young man reached the pinnacle and was peerless in his generation, how could he be stingy to repay the favor of helping him in the past if he had any requests? It's already the middle of the night. I'm afraid you guys haven't found a place to stay yet. Why don't you stay in the Heavenly Command Palace first? Looking at Su Yi, Gua continued. He estimated that with the current situation in Central State City, Su Yi and the others wouldn't be able to find a place to stay. Thank you very much. Su Yi didn't refuse this time. He didn't need to guess to know how difficult it was to find a place to stay in Central State City. Most importantly, he had offended Sacred Mountain and the City Lord's mansion. In Central State City, perhaps only the Imperial Heavenly Palace was the place where he was absolutely safe. Let's go. Let's go back to the Imperial Heavenly Palace first. Seeing Su Yi nod, Gua was very happy. This guy was willing to go to the Imperial Heavenly Palace. It meant that his attitude towards the Imperial Heavenly Palace had improved. What happened? Why is it so noisy? A crisp voice came from Su Yi's bosom. The front of his clothes wriggled. Following that, Su Yi's little head popped out. As his eyes rolled, he directly fell asleep. He only woke up in a daze. Looking at the bustling surroundings, his eyes were filled with curiosity. When Su Yi appeared, Gua, Vice Palace Master Guanlan, and the others were even more curious and shocked. Their eyes were filled with doubt. Wu, then, the Imperial Heavenly Palace's savage beast mount roared, sweeping away a ferocious aura as it carried Su Yi and the others away. Elder Bingchao, Ouyang Yuanfeng, Quang Guilan, Wang Chuanda, and the others looked up, watching the group disappear into the night. Their expressions were extremely ugly. Around the City Lord's mansion, there were people everywhere. Looking at the group of people from the Imperial Heavenly Palace leaving, the shock in their hearts couldn't be calmed down for a long time. Bawang Sex Isu too strong. Many people couldn't help but exclaim. They were very shocked and their hearts were surging. At this moment, most of the people in Zhongzhou City were here to witness the outstanding and peerless talents in this sacred martial assembly. The sacred martial assembly hadn't even started yet, but there were already such battles. The battle just now was too shocking. The surrounding lights were extinguished, and the surging scene also disappeared. However, the messy scene outside the City Lord's mansion proved how strong the short battle just now was. It was also deeply imprinted in the minds of many people. This was especially true for the young people present. Such a shocking scene, such a peerless demeanor, was something that they would not be able to erase in their minds for many years. Ouyang Jinwei, the leader of the younger generation of the Sacred Mountain, who had already stepped into the Yuan-Zhen realm, how strong was she? But she was defeated by the Bawang Sek's Yi Su, who was still unknown before today, and heavily injured in front of the city lord's mansion. What kind of battle strength, what kind of demeanor was this? That Yi Su, in the end, in front of Ouyang Jinwei's shocking trump card, defeated her with just one move and ended the battle. Unfathomable, mysterious and powerful. Many experts who witnessed it with their own eyes trembled. The Bawang Sek's Yi Su, from the beginning to the end, didn't use the strongest means of a soul controller, but he had already defeated Ouyang Jinwei. This was enough to prove that he didn't use his full strength. The Bawang Sek's Yi Su is comparable to Gong Qian Xing and Li Qingwei. I'm afraid that's not all. The Bawang Sek's Yi Su easily defeated Ouyang Jinwei. I'm afraid that he can compete with Naren Ruyu. Especially many of the young people present, their hearts trembled, and couldn't help but surge. For them, Naren Ruyu was an unattainable existence, and had always been high and mighty. But now there was an unknown Bawang Sek's Yi Su, which was equivalent to them being unknown. Chapter 731. Thinking about it, many young people felt a surge of emotion and couldn't help but feel their blood boil. There were also many young people and experts from various forces who came to participate in the Sacred Martial Arts Assembly. When they saw the scene outside the city lord's mansion, their hearts couldn't calm down for a long time. That Yi Su is too strong. The crowd began to disperse. Among the group of young disciples from Xinjian Gate, Situ Muyang and many others still hadn't recovered from their shock. They couldn't believe it. For Situ Muyang, Ryugan River, and the others, they knew how strong Ouyang Jinwei was. In the end, when Ouyang Jinwei used her full strength and trump card, among them, only Mu Yao could fight against her. She was so strong, but in the end she was defeated by Yi Su. That Yi Su is so strong. Sakura Asaka's red lips opened slightly as she muttered to herself. That ordinary-looking Yi Su didn't seem to be very strong. It was hard to imagine that he could use such a terrifying move at the end. 3S, let's go. Mu Yao spoke in a light voice. Her orange clothes fluttered in the wind, and her eyes were clear like water. At this moment, even though she didn't have a smile on her face, she still gave others a moving sense of beauty. She possessed an otherworldly bearing, and she was like an immortal. However, a few strands of long hair hung down from her forehead to the side, and it added a wild bearing to her. I feel that Yi Su's moves are quite similar to junior martial uncles. Hearing this, the crowd left, but Situ Muyang muttered softly. It can't be Sui. Even if Sui didn't die, Yi Su is also a soul controller. Sui isn't. Gu Chenyu said softly. It's a pity that Sui. Speaking of Sui, this group of young disciples of Xinjian Gate were all sad and silent. The crowd dispersed, and the sea of spectators left the city lord's mansion. Outside the city lord's mansion, the guards began to disperse the crowd, restore order, and repair the square. At night, Central Continent City was still brightly lit. The great disturbance just now, towards this boundless Central Continent City, after shaking the entire world, immediately returned to calmness. However, the name of the Bawang Sek's Yi Su spread like wildfire, leaving a deep impression on those who had witnessed it with their own eyes. Not long after, there were rumors that the Bawang Sek's Yi Su was last year's god of war. He was tall and handsome, and he looked down on the world with disdain. This kind of rumor made many women feel relieved. The outstanding disciple of the Sacred Mountain's younger generation, Ouyang Jinwei, the eldest miss of Central Continent City, was actually defeated by the Bawang Sek's Yi Su, and even humiliated. Some people's expressions changed when they heard this. This Bawang Sek's Isu was quite bold. This can't be blamed on Isu. Ouyang Jinwei is proud and aloof. She didn't put Isu in her eyes. She wanted to humiliate him, but in the end, she was the one who was humiliated. Many people felt injustice for Su-yi. Ouyang Jinwei was arrogant from the start. She didn't put Isu in her eyes, and wanted to humiliate him. In the end, she was humiliated by Isu, which made people feel refreshed. I'm afraid this matter is not so simple. That Isu offended the sacred mountain. He might be in trouble. Some busybodies sat together and discussed. Although Isu defeated Ouyang Jinwei, he didn't give any face to the sacred mountain. He even humiliated Ouyang Jinwei, which was the same as humiliating the sacred mountain. They were afraid that the sacred mountain wouldn't let Isu go, and this matter wouldn't end well. Especially since Ouyang Jinwei was an important disciple of the sacred mountain. She was defeated before the sacred martial assembly truly began, which represented the sacred mountain's face. In any case, Isu would be in trouble. It is said that Isu is highly valued by the Heavenly Palace. Palace Master Gue of the Heavenly Palace personally came out. I'm afraid the sacred mountain won't be able to do anything to Isu easily. Someone replied. The Heavenly Palace was not easy to deal with. The sacred mountain was the #1 power in Central Continent, but the history of the Heavenly Palace was well known by some true powerhouses. It seems like the sacred mountain won't be able to win this time's sacred martial assembly. There will be a strong contender. Not necessarily. I heard that the real contenders for the sacred martial assembly this time are Chu Zhonghuan and Naren Ryu. Someone mysteriously said. It is said that Chu Zhonghuan is much stronger than Ouyang Jinwei. Let's not talk about Chu Zhonghuan first. The truly terrifying one is Naren Ryu. He is the sacred mountain's sacred son. Sacred son. These two simple words caused everyone to suck in a breath of cold air. In Central Continent, not everyone knew what the sacred sun represented. However, as long as they had some experience, they would know what kind of terrifying existence the sacred sun of the sacred mountain represented. The two words, sacred sun, represented invincible and supreme glory, able to sweep across the world. Bawang Sect, Isu in Central Continent City, somewhere in the void, the childlike old figure had a strange look in his eyes. He pondered for a long time, then his figure broke through the void and disappeared. Bawang Sect, Isu in various parts of Central Continent City, many obscure auras disappeared. However, at this moment, in many secluded places, there were people whispering, remembering the name of Bawang Sect, Isu in their hearts. In Central Continent City, in the fastest time, the odds of Bawang Sect, Isu directly changed, and his ranking rose to the top. All the major forces in the city gathered at the mountain gates of Central Continent City. They were all shocked at the first moment. This was a storm-like shock. The young talents who came to participate in the sacred martial assembly were all discussing spiritedly at the first moment. Only the people in Central Continent City's City Lord's Mansion and Sacred Mountains people had ugly expressions, unable to accept this. This little bastard, he's gone too far. In the City Lord's Mansion, Kwang Guilan's face was gloomy to the extreme. Her eyes were filled with coldness, and she gritted her teeth. Seriously injuring her son, humiliating her daughter, new grudges, and old grudges. Ryu Zhonghuan in the sacred martial assembly, that Isu must not stay. Elder Binko's face was gloomy, and his eyes were filled with coldness. Such a young man did not put Sacred Mountain in his eyes. From his attitude, he would be a future threat to Sacred Mountain sooner or later. They must not allow him to grow. That Isu seems to have not stepped into the Yuanzhen realm, but his strength is unfathomable. I'm afraid it won't be easy to stop him in the sacred martial assembly. Chu Zhonghuan said, with a faint smile on his face. He felt that there were not many people who could stop Isu from entering the sacred martial assembly. It's not that there's no way. In the selection before the sacred martial avenue, if someone interferes, that kid won't be able to enter the sacred martial avenue. No one will be able to interfere, and at that time, Yutian Palace will have nothing to say. Wang Chuanda suddenly said faintly from the crowd. His eyes were filled with coldness. His words were vague, but the meaning was self-evident. Chapter 732. Hearing this, Elder Binko's eyes narrowed slightly, revealing a faint sneer as he looked at Chu Zhanghuan and the light cyan-haired youth. If he has the qualifications to be my opponent, I will pay the price on the spot at the sacred martial assembly. Previously, when I made a move, was it to praise him or to humiliate me? The light cyan-haired youth's expression was calm, but there was an invisible arrogance that looked down on everything. If that kid had the qualifications, he would naturally make a move. As soon as his voice fell, the youth directly left. Watching Naren Ryu leave, Elder Bingchao, Quang Guilan, Ouyang Yuanfeng, and the others' eyes secretly moved, but they didn't dare to say anything. If we meet, we can test the depth of his strength, Chu Zhanghuan said indifferently with a smile on his face, then left. Elder, if we let that kid enter the sacred martial avenue, then even if we want to kill him, it will be somewhat inconvenient. Watching Chu Zhanghuan and Naren Ryu leave, Wang Chuanda's eyes secretly moved, and he said in front of Elder Bingchao, "If we really want to deal with that kid, I have an idea." "Tell me." Elder Binko's eyes moved. "That kid is very strong and talented, but there are still many disciples who came to the sacred mountain this time. 2 fists can't fight against 4 hands. That kid is only one person after all, and we are more familiar with that place. If we can make some arrangements, no one will know when the time comes." Wang Chuanda's eyes were cold, and he made a throat-slitting gesture. As long as they made some arrangements, it wouldn't be a big deal to kill that kid in front of the sacred martial avenue. Listening to Wang Chuanda's words, the coldness in Elder Binko's eyes gradually intensified, and he sneered. Quang Guilan and the others' eyes were also filled with killing intent. Overnight, Central State City was surging like a storm. The Bawang sect's name, Isu, was completely famous, and it resounded like a storm. Countless people were shocked. They had never heard of the Bawang sect, but today, such a terrifying disciple had suddenly appeared. I'm afraid that the Bawang sect will be famous in Central State in the future. Some people said that they had never heard of the Bawang sect before, but from now on, the name of the Bawang sect would resound throughout Central State. In a certain secluded area of Central Continent City, an expert was sitting upright, instructing a young disciple in front of him. That Bawang sect's Isu will be another powerful opponent apart from Naren Ryu and Chu Zhanghuan. Isu of the Bawang sect. Interesting. Let's defeat him first, then go find Chu Zhanghuan and Naren Ryu. Somewhere, there was a young man in a green robe with embroidered patterns on the collar and cuff. His black hair was tied up, and his slender body was straight. His entire person was handsome and exuded an innate noble temperament. The corners of his mouth were moderately thick, and a dazzling smile seemed to ripple at any time. At this moment, his eyes were surging with battle intent. 6. First Hair Isu of the Bawang sect was the whetstone he had just chosen. If he defeated Isu, then he would have the courage and confidence to deal with Chu Zhanghuan and Naren Ryu. As the saying goes, when enemies meet on a narrow path, the brave will win. This kind of confidence was very important. Even the saint ruler's chi can defeat him. Isu, then let's start with you. In the pavilion, the surroundings were calm and the night was slightly cold. The young man stood there, his perfect facial features well defined. His long and thick eyelashes and his handsome nose outlined an exquisite and handsome arc. Under the long and thick eyelashes, his dazzling eyes were surging with battle intent. He had chosen a whetstone, which was also the Bawang Sex E Su. In the Yutian Palace of Zhongzhou City, Su E, Merciless West, and the Green Emperor were arranged to stay in a quiet courtyard in the Yutian Palace. Su E expressed his gratitude to Palace Master Gue, Vice Palace Master Guanlan, and the others for their help today. Old man Gue smiled and didn't take it to heart. He told Su E that the sacred martial assembly would be held in 3 days. During these 3 days, he could stay in the Yutian Palace. The various collections of the Yutian Palace could be opened for him to read at will. Then, old man Gue looked at little handsome Su, who was trying to climb out of Su Yi's arms but could only stick his head out. Only then did he leave. This time around, I owe these seniors a great favor. After seeing Palace Master Gue and the others leave, Su Yi said softly to Merciless West as he watched old man Gue and the others leave. It is indeed a great favor, but this also proves that the Yutian Palace wants to rope you in, said Merciless West. Let's talk about this later. Su Yi smiled wryly. The Palace of Drive Celestial valued his potential and talent as a soul controller, but he was only able to become a soul controller because of that mysterious master. If he wanted to join the Palace of Drive Celestial, he should have at least asked. Even if he really joined the Yutian Palace, he would have more freedom and the support of the Yutian Palace's vast resources. This was a great temptation. But Su Yi also knew that he was still the sect master of the Tian Yao school. The courtyard was very secluded. After Merciless West and the Green Emperor went to rest, Su Yi was alone in the room in a daze, unable to calm down. Boss, what are you thinking about? Little handsome Su was finally released from Su Yi's clothes. He landed on Su Yi's shoulder and asked with his clear little eyes. I'm thinking, when will you grow up, and when will I be able to reach the peak? When that time comes, we won't be afraid of anyone bullying us. Su Yi looked sideways and smiled at little handsome Su. When little handsome Su grew up one day, today's situation would never happen again. This I don't know. But don't worry, boss. When I grow up, I won't let any of those who bullied you go, little handsome Su said seriously. His clear eyes flashed with sharpness. He woke up because he felt the terrifying aura. He saw some clues about the situation outside the city lord's mansion. I didn't raise you for nothing. Su Yi stroked little handsome Su's little head and smiled. There was an invisible connection. This was a special feeling, like a real brother. Su Yi felt warmth in his heart. In this world, he wasn't alone. He had his grandfather, his best friend Fatty Wang, that girl Warner Su Tianke, little handsome Su, and now he had a brother like little handsome Su and his sworn brother, Merciless West. There were also his parents in this world. Although they only existed in the depths of his memory, for some reason, they left. Power, I need power. Chapter 733. Cultivate. Not long ago, he had consumed a lot of energy, so he had to reach the Great Void Spirit Sea as soon as possible. A moment later, after stuffing a pill into his mouth, Su Yi sat cross-legged on his bed and began to meditate. The next day, early in the morning, Central Continent City was filled with red clouds. The sun rose from the east, releasing rays of light. In a split second, 10,000 rays of golden light pierced through the thin clouds, dyeing Central Continent City with a layer of gorgeous red clouds. Sunlight shone through the gaps in the clouds, as if countless dragons were spitting out golden waterfalls, dazzling and full of vitality. Within the vast and boundless Central Continent City, the bustling atmosphere was even more intense than yesterday. People continued to pour into Central State City, almost causing Central State City to be overcrowded. Bawang Sex Isu, this kind of name had spread throughout Central Continent City, and even spread out from Central Continent City in all directions. Early in the morning, Merciless West found Su Yi, gave him some instructions, and then left Heavenly Master Palace. I need to go out and inquire about some things. There are still some things I need to do. I don't know when I'll be back, but I'll definitely be back before the Sacred Martial Assembly. You can stay in Heavenly Master Palace by yourself for now. You can do as you wish, just don't run around. A moment later, Sui also gave some instructions to the Green Emperor, and then directly ran into Heavenly Master Palace. His goal was the various collections of Heavenly Master Palace's branch palace. He wanted to study them. Elder Gyue had already told him yesterday. He couldn't truly join Heavenly Master Palace, so he was too embarrassed to ask for the cultivation resources of Heavenly Master Palace. However, Sui felt that he could take a look at the various collections of Heavenly Master Palace. In the field of soul manipulation, he was still lacking too much. Although he had obtained a lot of information from that mysterious person, it was still lacking in some areas. It just so happened that he had nothing to do these few days, so he could take a look around. In Heavenly Master Palace, there was no one who didn't recognize Sui. Seeing Sui, everyone had a look of surprise, but they were all very gentle and courteous, giving Sui directions. The densely packed ancient bookshelves were filled with all kinds of yellowed scrolls, jade slips, and ancient books. These were all the collections of the Heavenly Palace. Countless people wanted to come here, but they had no chance. Sui entered and immersed himself in it. Little handsome Su followed her in. He flapped his wings and looked around curiously. In the end, little handsome Su did the same as Sui. He flipped open a yellowed and slightly incomplete ancient book with his wings. It seemed to be related to the demon clan, and immersed himself in it. Time slowly passed. 2 days had passed by in a blink of an eye. In these 2 days, the central continent city was bustling with noise and excitement. There was a sea of people, and the streets and alleys were so crowded that not even a drop of water could trickle through. Everywhere, people were discussing the Sacred Martial Assembly. Gong Qianxing, Li Qingwei, Xiao Xijun, Mu Yao, Qi Tianxian, Feng Qingnong, Lin Fan, Chen Yanhuan, Jian Wuk, etc. Some of these names were spreading out as well, becoming the topic of discussion for countless people. The Sacred Martial Assembly was a grand event held once every 30 years for the younger generation of the Central Continent. It affected the hearts of all the major forces and people. Of course, there was no lack of Bawang sects Isu, Sacred Mountains Chuzhanghuan, and Sacred Mountains Narenru. The Sacred Martial Assembly had not yet begun, but these young people were already famous. This is a real battle between dragons and tigers. For this Sacred Martial Assembly, the 5 sects, 3 factions, and other major forces have been preparing for 30 years. 4 See Chapter 0 F Regular E-Edition A%, Section _Cool Craftsman. There were old people and experts whispering. For this Sacred Martial Assembly, the major forces had been preparing for 30 years. The final showdown would be a rare grand event. There was no doubt that those who performed outstandingly in the Sacred Martial Assembly would become the top experts of the Central Continent in the future. In the center of the Central Continent city there was a huge square. Many rogue cultivators and the younger generation of small forces and families would come here. There was a martial arts arena here. Young people could come here to compete. This was a place to become famous before the Sacred Martial Assembly began. Every time the Sacred Martial Assembly was held, there would be young people coming out of this place. In the end, they would be chosen by some major forces and families. Therefore, this place became more and more lively. It was rumored that there were people who came out of this place and entered the Sacred Mountain. Good luck, good job. The martial arts arena was bustling with noise and excitement. Countless people raised their arms and cheered, their blood boiling. Those who dared to come up to the arena were all extraordinary people of the younger generation. 2 days later, Su Yi and Su Xiaoshui came out with smiles on their faces. They had gained a lot. These 2 days were too short. Su Yi had only read some things related to soul controllers. There were also many martial arts techniques, but they required similar items to exchange. Su Yi could not do anything about it. However, this free benefit was what Su-yi lacked the most at the moment. In these 2 days, Su-yi had broadened his horizons and read a lot of secret pattern history. What shocked Su-yi the most was that Su-yi learned something related to soul controllers. Turned out that the most terrifying thing about soul controllers was not just that they could control remnant souls for their own use. There was something even more terrifying than that. The strange gate illusory spirit world was the most terrifying method of soul controllers that Su-yi knew. For some reason, it was not recorded in the art of driving the heavens. As for the strange gate illusory spirit world, it was rumored that even the strongest soul controller would find it difficult to set it up alone. It required many soul controllers to set it up at the same time. The soul controllers who could set up the strange gate illusory spirit world were already the strongest among soul controllers. Setting up the strange gate illusory spirit world required the cooperation of many powerful soul controllers. Furthermore, the soul controller leading the group needed to be abnormally powerful. The strange gate illusory spirit world was also said to be extremely terrifying. Once the strange gate illusory spirit world was successfully set up, it was said that it could have the power of gods and ghosts, borrowing heaven and earth energy to kill the opponent inside. Thinking about it, soul controllers using the power of remnant souls for their own use was already horrifying enough. And a strange gate illusory spirit world required many of the most powerful soul controllers to set it up at the same time. One could also know how horrifying this power was just by thinking about it. It was a pity that in the Heavenly Driving Palace's information section, there were merely some introductions and records regarding the strange gate illusory spirit world. There was no specific method of setting it up. Su-yi searched for a very long time and did not find anything else. Just knowing that the strange gate illusory spirit world was also divided into many levels. Setting up the strange gate illusory spirit world not only required powerful soul force, it also needed to expend tremendous effort and material resources. For example, essence stones needed quite a lot. Furthermore, the essence stones needed to set up the strange gate illusory spirit world were not just ordinary grade essence stones. The higher the grade of the essence stones, plus the higher the level of the soul controller, the stronger the strange gate illusory spirit world set up. After learning about the strange gate illusory spirit world, Su-yi did not have the heart to look at other things anymore. He planned on coming out to find Merciless West to ask. Chapter 734. Before returning to their courtyard, Su-yi and Su Tianke saw Merciless West in the corridor. It seemed that Merciless West had returned 2 days ago. "Brother, where are you going?" Su-yi asked. He was wondering if Merciless West had returned. "There's an auction. I heard that there's something I want there, so I'm going to take a look," Merciless West said. "Auction? What's an auction?" Su-yi asked. This was the first time he heard of an auction. Merciless West's eyes twitched when he heard Su-yi's words. Did this kid stay in Xinjian Gate or not? He was a disciple of a great sect like Xinjian Gate, yet he didn't even know about an auction. Come with me, I'll take you there. Today's auction isn't simple." Merciless West raised his brows and showed off. Today's auction wasn't simple. Ordinary people wouldn't be able to enter, but with his status, it wasn't a problem. Su-yi stayed in the Heavenly Palace, but it was very free. With Su-yi's reputation in Zhongzhou City, he could come and go as he pleased. It was like his own home. However, Su-yi was very polite to the alchemists, blacksmiths, and soul controllers in the palace. He would greet them warmly and politely. Su-yi's thoughts were simple. He had been living under someone else's roof for the past few days, and he was indebted to the Heavenly Palace for taking him in. Moreover, the people in the Heavenly Palace were all terrifying existences. Perhaps one day, he would need the help of these alchemists and blacksmiths. This was a great opportunity, and he couldn't miss it. These alchemists, blacksmiths, and soul controllers all knew that Su-Yi had unlimited potential. The palace master valued him highly and was happy to befriend him. You seem to be very familiar with them. Seeing Su-Yi greet the alchemists, blacksmiths, and soul controllers along the way, Merciless West was moved. The more time they spent together, the more Merciless West felt that this kid was unfathomable. This wasn't just in terms of strength, but also in other aspects. For example, he subdued the Green Emperor and that mysterious space. Merciless West secretly remembered this. Moreover, this brat's character was evil, arrogant, and tenacious. However, his opponent was decisive and swift. The mercenary groups in the barbarian demon forest were the same. Facing a beautiful girl like Ouyang Jinwei, an ordinary young man would not be able to do anything to her and would show mercy. However, this brat did not show any mercy. As for his own people, Shi Wuqing could feel that Su-Yi was like a completely different person. He took good care of handsome Su like a brother, and his respect for old man Guyu, Guanlan, Yunding, Yenlu and the others could also be seen. All of this made Merciless West more and more interested in Su-Yi. This kid was indeed not an ordinary person. There's nothing wrong with building a good relationship first. Maybe in the future I'll need your help and it'll be easier to ask. Hearing Merciless West's words, Su-Yi lowered his voice and said to Merciless West. This, Merciless West rolled her eyes, but in her heart she thought, this kid is really not ordinary. Then, from Merciless West, Su-Yi learned what an auction in this world was. This auction didn't seem to be much different from the auctions in his previous life. It was just a place that took out some good treasures to auction. There were all kinds of pills, refining materials, elixirs, natural treasures, cultivation methods, martial skills, rare treasures, and so on. Usually, auctions would be hosted by some forces with a strong foundation. Ordinary forces wouldn't be able to host such an event. Recently, many major forces in Zhongzhou City have come. It's a grand occasion. Many experts from the 5 sects and 3 factions have come. There are also other top forces in Zhongzhou City, and even people from outside of Zhongzhou City. Therefore, today's auction isn't simple. The standard is especially high. Ordinary people can't enter at all. The corner of Shi Wuqing's mouth twitched. He was showing off. With his soul controller skill, he could enter such an auction. Then I'll have to go and take a look. There must be many good things being auctioned today. Su-Yi's interest was successfully piqued. He also wanted to go and see what was going on. Such a high standard, there must be many good things for sale. Of course. It's said that many experts from the 5 sects and 3 factions will be attending today's auction. There are also many hidden experts who will appear for a certain treasure. Merciless West sighed. What treasure? Su-Yi's curiosity was piqued. To be able to attract so many strong cultivators, it must not be an ordinary item. It's said that it's an ancient item. It's a great treasure that has attracted the attention of many experts. Many experts are here for that treasure. Merciless West said. This was the information he had gathered. He didn't know the specifics. He was only a rogue cultivator who hid his identity. Not many people knew about this information. He could only gather this much information. You also want to get that treasure? Su-Yi asked casually. He thought that Merciless West had gone out to gather information these 2 days for the treasure. Merciless West shook his head and said, that treasure has already attracted the attention of many experts. There will be a fierce battle to obtain it. The people from the 5 sects, 3 factions, and the Sacred Mountain are all present. There are still many hidden experts in Zhongzhou City. I'm afraid that without absolute strength, they won't be able to get their hands on that treasure. Su-Yi pondered. It was true. With so many people eyeing the treasure at the auction, many experts would come for it. It was inevitable that there would be a fierce battle. However, whoever obtained it in the end wouldn't be safe. Once they left the auction, they would be targeted by many experts. Without absolute strength, who would dare to get their hands on such a treasure? Sui was the most clear about the crime of possessing a treasure. He had seen it many times in the barbarian demon forest. I've found out that there will be a nebula Ganoderma in the auction. It's already at a very high level. Its effect is even better than the blood jade spirit ginseng. I have a great use for it. I must get it. Merciless West said. Light flashed in his eyes. Last time, he didn't get the blood jade spirit ginseng. In the end, it fell into the hands of this brat. He originally wanted to ask for it. However, Merciless West had received some news recently. A nebula Ganoderma had appeared. This time, he went to Zhongzhou City to gather information for the blood infant Ganoderma. Nebula Ganoderma, that's a good thing. Chapter 735. But I'm afraid it won't be easy to get the nebula Ganoderma. Merciless West frowned slightly. He was determined to get the nebula Ganoderma, so he couldn't miss it. It wasn't that the nebula Ganoderma was better than the blood jade spirit ginseng, but the nebula Ganoderma and the blood jade spirit ginseng could both be used as the main ingredients for the elixir he was concocting. But if the nebula Ganoderma and the blood jade spirit ginseng were of the same level, the effect of the nebula Ganoderma would be much better than the blood jade spirit ginseng. Merciless West had been preparing for 20 years for the elixir. He had collected all the supplementary herbs and elixirs, and now he was only missing the nebula Ganoderma. The nebula Ganoderma was very rare. Many people would be eyeing the nebula Ganoderma this time. If he wanted to get it, he would have to pay a high price. Auction. Isn't the highest bidder the winner? Just bid when the time comes. Sui said. Indeed, the highest bidder. But, Merciless West smiled and said, let's hope everything goes smoothly. Brother, do you know about the phantom world of the strange Tao sect? Sui asked Merciless West. He wanted to go to the auction to broaden his knowledge. Then he remembered the phantom world of the strange Tao sect and asked Merciless West. Who doesn't know about the Soul Controller? Merciless West rolled his eyes at Sui. Was he doubting him or mocking him? Which Soul Controller didn't know about the phantom world of the strange Tao sect? I don't know. Sui smiled embarrassedly. He was helpless. He didn't know that Soul Controllers had such skills. Shi Wuqing's footsteps paused for a moment. He looked at Sui's gaze and felt even more helpless. If he wasn't sure that Sui was a Soul Controller, he wouldn't believe that this kid was a Soul Controller. But now, Merciless West was doubtful. How did this kid become a Soul Controller, and a Soul Controller with such a high quality of soul? Generally speaking, the phantom world of the strange Tao sect is a space formed by the energy of heaven and earth. It's called the world. Strange is the sun, the moon, the stars, and the stars. The gate is the 8 gates. Rest, life, pain, stop, view, shock, death, and open. It is the strange gate. The gate. Strange is the strange gate. Strange is. The strange. As a. It ttttb. A is. In the end, Shi Wuqing could only look at Sui with disdain. As a Soul Controller, this guy didn't even know about the mystical gate illusory spirit world. Sui looked serious. Such a great skill was extraordinary. If he could comprehend it, it would be a great skill. Even if one spent their entire life's effort, it would still be difficult for one person to set up the Wonder Gate illusory spirit world. Rumor has it that only those with true heaven-rank soul quality in the legends could rely on their own strength to set up the Wonder Gate illusory spirit world, but that is only a possibility. Merciless West was moved. He sighed. He couldn't set up the phantom world of the strange Tao sect alone even if he used his whole life. Then, Shi Wuqing's eyes trembled. This kid in front of him was a Soul Controller with a heaven-tier soul quality. Perhaps there was a great chance that he could use his own strength to set up an illusionary spirit world. Is that so? Su Yi's eyes flickered. It seemed that becoming a soul controller was not an easy task. It was not something that could be accomplished in a short period of time. But when the time came, he would have to learn more about it. Brother, can you teach me the phantom world of the strange Tao sect when you're free? Su Yi smiled at Merciless West. From Merciless West's words, he could tell that Merciless West would definitely set up the phantom world of the strange Tao sect. You're not polite at all. Why should I teach you? You're just looking for trouble. Merciless West rolled his eyes at Su Yi. We're sworn brothers. We should share blessings and misfortunes. Plus, I won't let you lose out. Su Yi smiled. This was Merciless West. If he could teach him how to set up the phantom world of the strange Tao sect, it wouldn't be an opportunity that ordinary people could have. Okay, we'll talk about it when I'm free. Looking at Su Yi's expression, Merciless West rolled his eyes. But then he nodded. He knew that Su Yi had a lot of good things on him. Maybe he wouldn't lose out when the time came. The two brothers, one old and one young, were extremely uncoordinated. There was a bird in their arms that wanted to poke its little head out. Together, they headed for the auction. Do your best. Do your best. Good job. If you win again, you'll have won 6 matches in a row. Where did this Qing Qinfeng come from? He's so strong. Is he another dark horse? Noisy and lively voices filled the air. There were shouts and waving of arms everywhere. Clang clang, metal clashed, creating ear-piercing sounds. The sound of energy clashing was like thunder. Bang bang. Su Yi's attention was drawn to the sound of the muffled thud. What's going on? A martial arts competition? Su Yi was very curious. He stopped and looked into the distance. It was a huge square. At this moment there was a sea of people. He could see that there were people fighting in the middle of the square. It seemed that their strength was not bad. From the shouts and waving of arms, it could be seen that the people fighting in the square were very popular. These are some loose cultivators. The youngsters from small forces are having a martial competition. Their main objective is to make a name for themselves. They can also win a considerable amount of prizes. The onlookers can place their bets, Shi Wuqing said. It's very lively. Do you want to go and take a look? Su Yi looked over. From the shouts and waving of arms, he could tell that the battle on the stage had reached a climax. There were extraordinary young people fighting on the stage. The auction is in the afternoon. If you're interested, you can go and take a look. Merciless West nodded. Looking at the shouts and waving of arms, he was obviously interested. He knew very well that there were many dark horses that walked out from this place before every sacred martial assembly. Let's go and take a look. Although he was from a large sect like Xinjiang Gate and had been in this world for 16 years, Su Yi had only been in Barbarian City since he was young. After that, he went to places like Barbarian Demon Forest and Barbarian Demon Forest. It was Su Yi's first time in such a lively place. After all, he was still young and was full of curiosity about everything. The old man and the young man squeezed into the crowd with difficulty. Relying on the aura that Merciless West secretly released, the two of them forced their way through the huge crowd and squeezed to the front of the stage. At this moment, 2 young men were fighting fiercely on the high stage. Their auras were surging. One of them had metal attribute Yuan Qi and the other had earth attribute Yuan Qi. They were wrapped in dazzling light. One of them had an incomparably sharp aura while the other had a thick and continuous aura. Clang clang. Chapter 736. This young man was very strong. His spear was like a dragon, shining with golden light. However, the young man with earth attribute Yuan Qi was not weak either. He used a rarely used spear as his weapon. The black earth attribute Yuan Qi was endless, and the long spear moved like a snake, thick and heavy. The two of them continued to exchange blows. The golden spear collided, and the aura spread out like a tornado. The muffled sound of energy could be heard constantly. This kind of battle made the spectators raise their arms and cheer. The atmosphere was pushed to the peak. The battle stage was obviously set up to be indestructible. Otherwise, it would have been torn apart. Both of them are not bad. Sui looked at the two people on the stage. The two young men did not seem to be very old, but they were both very strong. Both of them had the strength of Yuan Zhen realm. Sui could not help but be moved by such strength. According to Merciless West, these young men were all loose practitioners or disciples of small factions. However, with such strength, how could they not be strong? One must know that among the same generation in Xinjiang Gate, there were not many who could reach this level. Who do you think will win? Merciless West looked at the stage, and then whispered in Su Yi's ear. Looking at the two young men on the stage, she seemed to be very interested. Su Yi was a little surprised. He glanced at Merciless West, then looked at the stage and said, "If there is no accident, the one with metal attribute Yuan Qi will win? Why? It is obvious that the one with earth attribute Yuan Qi is more aggressive and has the upper hand. I am afraid that he will use his trump card soon. Moreover, the one with metal attribute Yuan Qi seems to have fought many times. He is like an arrow at the end of its flight." Merciless West asked. "Although the one with the earth attribute Yuan Qi now has the upper hand, I'm afraid he will have to use his trump card. The one with the metal attribute Yuan Qi looks like he's at the end of his rope, but he hasn't really lost his composure. I think the one who will lose will be the one with the earth attribute Yuan Qi," Sui said in a low voice. Merciless West looked at the stage and was slightly moved. Sure enough, after a dozen moves, the earth-attributed Yuan Qi youth used his trump card. Suddenly, his aura skyrocketed, and the long spear rushed out like a black python. Its aura was fierce, and it swept out in all directions. "Good timing!" The metal-attributed Yuan Qi youth roared, and at this moment, his aura that seemed like an arrow at the end of its flight suddenly skyrocketed. His aura was clearly much stronger than that of the earth-attributed Yuan Qi youth. Seizing the opportunity, his long spear was like a raging dragon emerging from the sea, carrying a faint dragon roar, like a rising golden sun. That golden spear light was like a golden bolt of lightning as it furiously charged down. The golden dragon soared into the sky, and a terrifyingly sharp aura swept out in all directions. It slammed into the spear and instantly destroyed it. Qi La, at the same time, the youth with the metal attribute was already prepared. His speed and power soared at the same time. In an instant, he was beside the youth with the earth attribute. With a flick of his finger, a sharp golden fingerprint also swept out. Why look at N is H #edition. Chapter 41 above Q. The golden fingerprint was like a hot knife through butter. It pierced through the expert's black earth attribute Yuan Qi light shield, and when he could not dodge, it swept into his shoulder. Suddenly, a bloody hole appeared and blood splashed out. Puff! The earth-attributed expert's face instantly turned ashen, and he spat out a large mouthful of blood. Bang bang! The metal-attributed youth's palm print also landed on his shoulder. In the explosion of the golden light, the earth-attributed youth was directly sent flying from the stage. He heavily fell off the stage, causing the ground to tremble and the stone floor to crack. He constantly spat out blood. "You lost!" On the stage, the metal-attributed Yuan Qi youth's golden light dissipated, revealing a rather handsome face. His long hair was slightly messy, which added a bit of a fierce aura. He was tall and slender, and the long spear in his hand was upside down. He had a refined temperament, good eyesight. Seeing that the earth-attributed youth had already been defeated, Merciless West looked at Su Yi and said indifferently. Su Yi smiled slightly. He had relied on his sharp soul power to sense that the metal-attributed youth seemed to be at a disadvantage, but his aura was not chaotic. This was definitely to lure the opponent in and make the opponent lower his guard. This would also save him a lot of energy, and it was also the safest way. It was enough to prove that the metal-attributed youth was extremely scheming. Qing Qingfeng wins, 6th consecutive victory. Someone in the corner of the stage announced loudly, and the voice reverberated around. Good job! Amazing, Qing Qingfeng, good job! In this world where martial arts flourished, the strong were always the most admired and respected. Cheers and shouts could be heard. 6 consecutive victories, what kind of record was this? And it made everyone excited. Qing Qingfeng stood on the stage and looked around. There was a faint smile on the corner of his mouth, and his eyes were surging with fighting spirit. Is there anyone else who wants to challenge Qing Qingfeng? But if you lose, you will have to pay a price, but if you win, you will also gain great benefit. On the stage, a voice continued. Those who came up to challenge would have to pay a price, otherwise, everyone would run up to try. There were not that many seats on the stage. Of course, after winning, not only would they gain fame, they would also gain a lot of rewards. It could be said to be killing 2 birds with 1 stone. The crowd was in an uproar. Many young people were eager to fight, but at this moment, looking at Qing Qingfeng on the martial arts stage, no one dared to truly go up and fight. Qing Qingfeng has won 6 consecutive battles. Who else dares to come up and fight? Is there no one else who dares to come up and fight? The voice in the corner of the stage was extremely provocative. Below the stage, many young people were eager to fight, but they were also very clear that they were not a match for Qing Qingfeng with their strength. Who else dares to fight? Qing Qingfeng stood on the stage and looked around. Golden light flickered. His goal was to win 10 consecutive battles, and it was a good opportunity to make a name for himself in the sacred martial assembly. It was an opportunity that only came once every 30 years, and since he had encountered it, he naturally would not miss it. The voice echoed, resounding in the surroundings. Who will go up and fight? If you defeat Qing Qingfeng, it will be equivalent to winning 7 consecutive battles, and it will be relatively easy. Defeating Qing Qingfeng will be enough to make a name for yourself. Many people were excited. Qing Qingfeng had already won 6 consecutive battles, and if anyone went up and defeated him now, it would be equivalent to winning 7 consecutive battles. Qing Qingfeng's exhaustion from the 6 battles must be extremely severe, and if he went up now, he would have a great advantage. If he defeated Qing Qingfeng, he would become famous in Central State City. Qing Qingfeng is too strong. I'm afraid he won't be easy to deal with. Some young people were eager to try, but sometimes they were hesitant and had no confidence. Do you want to go up and try? Chapter 737. Forget it. Su Yi smiled. He could tell that Qing Qingfeng was very strong and was still holding back. However, compared to Ouyang Jinwei and the others, there was still a big gap. If he went up, it would be a bit of a bully. Let me do it. Suddenly, such a voice rang out at this moment. Following which, the crowd surged and many people looked towards the source of the voice. A small path opened up in the crowd. Under everyone's gaze, a young man in his 20s walked out. The young man was dressed in white, and his black hair was tied up with a bamboo hairpin. In the boiling atmosphere, the young man's face was like an apricot, and his posture was elegant. His eyes were lively, and he had an attractive aura. Whoosh whoosh. When he was dozens of feet away from the stage, Yuan Qi swept out from under the young man's feet. Then, his feet touched the ground, and his figure rose into the air. After a few leaps, his figure directly jumped onto the stage. When he landed, not a trace of dust was raised. Good! Such a move was so elegant and beautiful that even those with sharp eyes could not help but praise him. This movement technique is not simple. Merciless West was secretly moved. The white-clothed young man's movement technique was not simple. Sue was also sizing up the young man who had just landed on the stage. He was dressed in white, and upon closer inspection, there were profound patterns on his sleeves. His slender and beautiful fingers were like that of a woman's, and his face was so handsome that even men would want to take a few more glances at him. Under his long eyelashes, there was a sharp black eyes, a sharp outline, and a slender figure. Under his white clothes, there was a cold and aloof temperament that made people want to get close to him. The young man stood quietly on the stage, and there was a kind of aura that looked down on the world. However, it did not lose its elegance. So handsome! Too handsome! There is actually such a handsome man in this world. When such a young man went up on stage, countless gazes fell on the young man's handsome face. Many women's eyes flickered, and they were greatly moved. Just looking at the young man was enough to tug at their heartstrings. Such a young man was so handsome that men would not be jealous of him. They would only be amazed that there was actually such a good-looking man in this world. He's really handsome, Sue also muttered in his heart. He had always felt that he was handsome and charming, with an outstanding temperament. But at this moment, when he saw this young man, he couldn't help but feel that no adjectives like pan and were enough to describe this young man's handsomeness. There was actually a man in this world who could look like this. He didn't know how many women would suffer. As soon as this young man stepped onto the stage, his handsome appearance caused the surrounding people to become sluggish for a moment. Soon after, the voice in the square recovered and said, "The newcomer needs to show the Sacred Martial Assembly's registration jade plate, which sect you are from, and what is your name." The young man in white took out the registration jade card and waved it at the middle-aged man on the stage. He said, "I have a registration jade card, Su-chun. As for where I came from, let's not talk about it. This is already Ching Chingfeng's 7th battle. If you come up to challenge him, then you must first hand over something that's worth 5 high-grade star-grade medicinal pills as the wager. If you win, then everything on the arena will be yours. If you lose, then everything will belong to Ching Chingfeng." On the arena, the old man spoke. "No problem. There's a low-grade yellow-grade 9 transformation true elemental pill here. It should be enough." Su-chun nodded and waved his hand. A medicine box was directly thrown onto the stone table at the corner of the arena. There were a lot of medicinal pills and other things piled up there. They were all won by Ching Chingfeng. Whoever won would be able to win all of them. 9 transformation true elemental pill. Sui heard this and was suddenly moved. A low-grade yellow-grade 9 transformation true elemental pill was a treasure on the same level as the mysterious soaring dragon pill. Its value was self-evident. This man called Su-chun actually took out a low-grade yellow-grade medicinal pill without even blinking his eyes. A low-grade yellow-grade medicinal pill, everyone was shocked. Although this was the central state city, the largest city in the central state, low-grade yellow-grade medicinal pills were absolutely not everywhere. What's more, those who could be in this place at this time were people from small sects and small forces or rogue cultivators. A low-grade yellow-grade medicinal pill was not ordinary. The old man on the high platform was also a little surprised. He went to the stone table and opened the medicine box. A dazzling light filled the air and a medicinal fragrance assailed his nose. It was indeed a 9 transformation true elemental pill. "You directly took out a 9 transformation true elemental pill?" The old man's eyes flickered. This 9 transformation true elemental pill was not comparable to the medicinal pills on the stone table at this time. "Of course, I don't have any star-grade medicinal pills on me." Su-chun nodded with certainty. Then, he directly looked at Ching Chingfeng and said, "Can we start? You have fought 6 rounds in a row, but I don't have time to wait for you to rest for too long. How about this? I won't take advantage of you. I'll let you have 6 moves. How about it? Hearing Su Chen's words, Qing Qingfeng, who was also quite surprised by the 9 transformation true elemental pill, suddenly looked fierce. Letting him have 6 moves, he did not put him in his eyes. You are a little too arrogant. Qing Qingfeng looked straight at Su Chen. His golden eyes surged, his long hair fluttered, and his aura was fierce. This is not arrogance, but confidence. Make your move, Su Chen said. On his handsome face, a faint light flickered in his clear eyes. This light flashed and disappeared unconsciously, easily attracting people and making them intoxicated. This confidence came from inside out, as if everything was supposed to be like this. It was this confidence that made Qing Qingfeng's heart tremble for no reason. The more he looked at the young man in front of him, the more uneasy he felt for no reason. Take out your weapon, Qing Qingfeng said, looking straight at Su Chen. No need, let's finish this quickly. I'm a little pressed for time. Su Chen slightly raised his head, and the corners of his mouth curled up slightly. His handsome face and temperament made the hearts of countless women around him move and become infatuated with him. Arrogance comes with a price. Qing Qingfeng was angry. Su Chen did not put him in his eyes at all, which was intolerable. Su Chen's appearance made everyone exclaim in admiration. He took out a low-tier yellow-grade medicinal pill, which proved that he came from a great sect. Qing Qingfeng could not accept this. He had already won 6 rounds, so he must win the 7th round in a row. His goal was to win 10 rounds in a row. He came from a small sect, so he could not compare with the disciples of the great sections. Therefore, he must become famous in one battle. These disciples of the great sects were his stepping stones. Boom! Chapter 738. Hurry up, I'm really in a hurry. Looking at Qing Qingfeng, Su Chen's face was calm and his expression was sincere. He was really in a hurry. But to Qing Qingfeng, this was a naked humiliation. In this sacred martial assembly, he wanted to prove that he wasn't any worse than the disciples of the great sects. He wanted to prove himself, just like the Bawang sect's Isu, who had been the talk of the town for the past 2 days. And he wanted to prove himself with his 10 consecutive victories and become famous in one battle. As you wish. Qing Qingfeng had always been a person who knew when to advance and when to retreat. However, he was truly enraged at this moment. The long spear in his hand trembled and exploded with golden light. His figure stepped out and his speed was extremely fast. Like the wind and lightning, his spear pierced through the void. Chi La! The speed was too fast, and the sharp golden light burst out, directly plunging into Su Chen's chest, shocking many people. The tip of the spear pierced through the void, and Su Chen's figure was directly shattered, but no blood spurted out. Instead, Su Chen's voice rang out, "First move." As his voice fell, Su Chen's figure had already appeared beside Qing Qingfeng, and his expression was still very calm. Qing Qingfeng's expression darkened. He raised his eyes and a trace of seriousness appeared on his face. The golden spear in his hand suddenly trembled and spun around like a snake swinging its tail. A golden light erupted from the spear as it once again stabbed towards Su Chen. "What do you think?" Merciless West asked Su Yi in a low voice, looking at Su Chen on the stage with great interest. "What a fast speed, what a mysterious identity, unfathomable," Su Yi said, and his gaze fell on Su Chen's body. That mysterious identity and speed made Su Yi's sharp soul power feel that compared to his rising Yao's 100 transformation steps, it might even be better. "I've never seen this movement technique before, and the aura is very strange." Merciless West was also slightly moved. That movement technique was very mysterious, and even he had never seen it before. The aura on Su Chen's body was also very mysterious, and even he couldn't see through it. Very mysterious. Su Yi's eyes flickered. Su Chen's aura was clearly being restrained, so he couldn't sense it. Then who do you think will win? Merciless West seemed to be very interested and asked Sui. Ching Qingfeng was originally not bad, but now that he's been angered and affected, I'm afraid he's going to lose. It'll be difficult for him to win the 7th battle in a row. Sui said. Ching Qingfeng was originally extraordinary. Among the younger generation, he could be considered to be extremely extraordinary. But Su Chen now looked even more unfathomable. No matter how fierce Ching Qingfeng's attacks were, he remained calm and composed. Most likely, Ching Qingfeng had stopped at 6 consecutive victories. The 6th move is over. While Su Yi and Merciless West were talking, Ching Qingfeng's 6th move had already missed, and her expression was completely serious. The surroundings of the battling platform were in an uproar. At this moment, seeing that Ching Qingfeng's 6 moves had also missed, the surroundings became oppressive and quiet for no reason. Countless pairs of eyes were fixed on the battling platform, afraid that they would miss out on some exciting moment. The 6th move is over. You should use your trump card. Otherwise, you're going to lose. Su Chen looked at Ching Qingfeng. His white robes fluttered slightly, but his expression was still calm and composed. Ching Qingfeng's expression was already completely serious. At this moment, he was clear that his opponent was too strong. He couldn't even touch his opponent's clothes after 6 moves. This kind of strength was unfathomable. Now, his only chance was to use his trump card. Boom! His aura surged and golden light shone. Ching Qingfeng's aura was completely released, and the aura of a 9th-level essence spirit realm was not held back. Roar! A dragon's roar could be faintly heard, and the aura surged to the heavens. At this moment, Ching Qingfeng made his move. His entire body exploded with a blazing golden light, as if a golden flame was burning, and swept across the battling platform. His figure leaped out, and the long spear in his hand was raised. His body and the long spear seemed to have merged into one, and the golden light seemed to have turned into a golden dragon's shadow, charging straight at Ching Qingfeng. So strong! Everyone exclaimed. So this was Ching Qingfeng's strongest strength. It was so strong to such an extent. Golden Dragon Space-Splitting Spear. So it's from Mount Qishan's Divine Spear Sect. Seeing Ching Qingfeng's move, Merciless West said softly. She immediately saw through Ching Qingfeng's origin. Divine Spear Sect. I don't think I've heard of it, Sui said, but his gaze was fixed on the stage. Ching Qingfeng's trump card was indeed extraordinary. He wondered how Su Chen would deal with it. Divine Spear Sect. It's just a small sect, a third-rate force. Mount Qishan is also far away, so it's normal that you haven't heard of it, Merciless West said to Sui. It was a long story, but the battle on the battling platform was extremely fast. The golden light of the spear swept over, and under the gaze of countless people, Su Chen no longer dodged. He raised one hand, and a white light burst out from his body, shooting straight into the sky. A terrifying storm like a tornado drew in the energy of heaven and earth from all around, and directly collided with the golden light of the spear. Walala, the surroundings trembled, and the battling platform trembled. Everyone could see that the golden light of the spear was shattered inch by inch. The terrifying storm swept down, destroying the golden light of the spear, and then swept over Ching Qingfeng's body. Ching Qingfeng spat out blood, and his body was directly swept into the sky by the storm, and then heavily smashed on the ground in front of the battling platform. Ching Qingfeng kept spitting out blood, and the long spear in his hand fell to the side. Everyone at the scene was shocked. How powerful was this? Su Chen was so calm that he defeated Ching Qingfeng, who had won 6 rounds in a row, with just one move. At this moment, everyone was shocked and stunned. That handsome young man was too powerful, and there was no weakness in his handsomeness. At this moment, he was inexplicably domineering, surrounded by light, and had an awe-inspiring aura. Looking at him from afar, it was as if he was looking down on all living things. Original version #premiere, very strong. Sui also sighed. This handsome young man was too strong. Defeating Qing Qingfeng with just one move might not be a big deal in Suyi's eyes, and with the cultivation strength of Ouyang Jinwei of the Sacred Mountain, she could easily do the same. But this young man called Su Chen, after defeating Qing Qingfeng with just one move, he still didn't leak much of his aura, making it impossible for others to pry into him. This was different. It was obvious that Su Chen had defeated Qing Qingfeng too easily. His true strength had probably reached a terrifying level. Su Chen is so handsome. So handsome. Around the battling platform, the young women were the first to come back to their senses. Some of the bolder ones cheered, and light spread out. Heavens, he's actually this strong. Chapter 739. Qing Qingfeng fell off the stage and crawled up while coughing up blood. He looked at the stage. His originally dazzling golden eyes were now filled with shock. He didn't expect that he couldn't even take a single blow from Su Chen. Su Chen was terrifyingly strong. He wanted to become famous in this sacred martial assembly. Who would have thought that he would lose so miserably? Su Chen wins this round. After a long time, the old man in the corner of the stage recovered from his shock. His voice was filled with shock and trembling as he said, "Is there anyone else who wants to challenge Su Chen?" The crowd was in an uproar, but no one dared to go up. Qing Qingfeng had already made the younger generation not dare to go up the stage, let alone Su Chen, who could defeat Qing Qingfeng in a single blow. "Can you see his origin?" Sui asked Merciless West softly. Sui was also very interested in such an unfathomable young man. They were both participating in the sacred martial assembly. Perhaps they would have a chance to fight when the time came. "I can't see it." Merciless West shook his head. He couldn't see through this young man's origin at all. He's really hidden it well. Sui was also very surprised. Merciless West could be considered experienced and knowledgeable. Even Merciless West couldn't see through this young man's origin. This was enough to prove that this young man called Su Chen had hidden it well. Whoosh! Just when the surrounding spectators thought that no one would dare to go up and challenge Su Chen, a figure leaped onto the battle stage. This person was wearing very ordinary clothes made of coarse cloth. However, his entire body was tightly wrapped. A hood covered his head, revealing only a small part of his face. It was as if he was afraid of being blown by the wind. This kind of clothing made it difficult for people to see his age or even his appearance. When this person jumped onto the stage, countless gazes immediately focused on him. As if he felt the countless gazes around him, this person was somewhat nervous and lowered his head. "Are you challenging Su Chen? Tell me your name and which sect you are from. Show your sacred martial assembly registration jade token." Looking at this mysterious figure, the old man in the corner of the stage was very surprised and asked, "Isn't this the sacred martial assembly registration place? I'm not here to challenge you, I'm here to register." The mysterious figure slightly raised his head and asked, revealing a small part of his face. At this moment, Su Chen and the old man seemed to be able to see a part of this mysterious person's face. "This isn't the sacred martial assembly registration place. Don't challenge me," he said to Qing Qingfeng, who was below the stage. "With you, see you." As soon as he finished speaking, Su Chen leaped off the arena and charged into the crowd while shouting loudly, "Luo Luo, wait for me! Wait for me!" Su Chen entered the sea of people. His figure was like a loach, and he was instantly submerged in the crowd. The surrounding spectators found it hard to come back to their senses. This young man called Su Chen had defeated Qing Qingfeng in one move and didn't even care about the reward. It was a bit strange and mysterious. Su-Yi and Merciless West looked at each other. They were also a bit confused. This young man called Su-Chun was really mysterious. On the stage, the mysterious figure was also very surprised. In the end, he looked at the old man on the stage and continued to ask, "Isn't this the Sacred Martial Assembly registration place? Where did this guy come from? This isn't the registration place. Don't cause trouble. Quickly get down." The old man was stunned for a moment before he scolded loudly. This was the martial arts competition stage, not a place to cause trouble. "I'm sorry, I came to the wrong place." The mysterious figure's voice was a bit timid. Judging from his voice, he seemed to be a young man. As soon as he finished speaking, the mysterious figure walked down the stage and slightly raised his head. "Why does he look like this? Is he a half-monster?" "So he's a half-monster. He's too ugly. So disgusting." Looking at the mysterious figure walking down the stage, the expressions of the surrounding spectators suddenly changed. They all moved away and whispered with disdain. Their gazes were also filled with hostility. The mysterious figure lowered his head and listened to the discussions around him. His head lowered even more as if he wanted to find a hole to hide in. Suddenly, a figure in front of him blocked his path. A calm voice immediately entered the ears of the mysterious figure. The voice said, "The registration place is outside the city. Tomorrow is the Sacred Martial Assembly. Hurry up and go. If you're late, you might not be able to make it." The mysterious figure raised his head and looked at the person in front of him. It was a young man around the age of 18 or 19 or 20. However, for some reason, there was an aura around him. He looked at the mysterious figure and told him the registration place. Su-Yi looked at the mysterious figure in front of him. He looked to be around 16 or 17 years old. His body was completely covered from the neck down. He also wore a hood that covered his face. Su-Yi could only see half of his face when he looked up. The young man's entire face was covered with black scales. His hair was also very messy. The top of his head was also covered with sparse black scales that intertwined with his sparse hair. There were wrinkles and blue veins on both sides of the scales on his face. He looked very ugly. This appearance really surprised Su-Yi for a moment. No wonder Su-Chen's expression changed for a moment. But soon, Su-Yi regained his composure. He smiled at the newcomer and nodded. Thank you." The black-scaled young man looked at Su-Yi and lowered his head to express his gratitude. He was not only grateful that Lin Fan told him the registration place, but also that he could see that everyone avoided him and was disgusted with him. However, he could feel that there was no avoidance or disgust in the eyes of the young man in front of him. Lin Fan seemed to have been startled just now, but that was purely his first reaction. Anyone who saw him would have such a natural reaction. "You're welcome." Su-Yi smiled. The scaled young man nodded, then lowered his head and left. "It's a half-demon body." Sigh, Merciless West's voice whispered in Su-Yi's ear. She sighed slightly. He's so familiar. Where have I seen this young man before? Yes, I think he's Yi-Su from the Bawang sect. After the conversation with the scaled young man, people looked over and whispered. They felt that Su-Yi looked like Yi-Su from the Bawang sect, who had become famous outside the city lord's mansion 2 days ago. Let's go. Chapter 740. A moment later, Su-Yi and Shi Wuqing's silhouettes silently appeared on the bustling street, and no one noticed them. At this moment, in this crowded street, no one would deliberately look for the two of them to identify if there was no special reason. Even if the two of them knew each other, it was very likely that they would miss each other if they met face to face in this sea of people. Is there any difference between a half-demon body? Su-Yi was still a little curious about the scaled youth, and asked Merciless West. Su-Yi knew a little about the half-demon body. Mu Yao was a half-demon. The half-demon body is the offspring of the demon clan and the human clan, Merciless West said. The offspring of the demon clan and the human clan. Sui was surprised. Could the demon clan and the human clan really mate? However, thinking of the charming appearance of Mu Yao in her human form, there were probably not many men in the world who could not fall for her. Thinking of the terrifying strength of the demon clan and the human clan, he continued to ask, the offspring of the demon clan and the human clan should be very strong, right? The demon clan was incomparably strong. Sui estimated that the offspring of the demon clan and the human clan would be very abnormal. Compared to normal humans, they should be much more tyrannical. Do you think the union of the demon clan and the human clan is easy? It is difficult to be accepted by the entire human clan and the demon clan. Moreover, it is said that among the offspring of the demon clan and the human clan, at most 1 in 1,000 can be close to normal. The remaining 999 will either die halfway or become a half-demon. They will also not have any special talent. In places like the underground black market, they will be bought back as livestock or playthings, Merciless West said. Is that so? Sui was truly surprised. Half-beast body, half-human and half-beast, but not many of them have the talent of the demon clan. The union of the human clan and the demon clan has always been difficult to tolerate. Occasionally, a powerful half-demon body would appear, which would attract the attention of the big sections. Regarding these powerful half-demon bodies, the human clan would turn a blind eye. Everyone has a tacit attitude. After all, everyone wants to have a powerful half-demon body, but the demon clan has always been unable to tolerate it. Merciless West paused for a moment, then continued to inform Sui. She looked slightly puzzled and said, "That guy just now could barely be considered a half-demon, or even a half-beast. But it's strange, he seems to be related to the scaled demon clan, but he doesn't seem to be one. Is it really impossible for the monster race and the human race to unite?" Sui whispered. He did not know why, but he thought of Ling Qianxue in his body. The union of the monster race and the human race would have such a heavy price, and it would also be intolerable by the entire human clan and the demon clan. That's not the case. The union of the monster race and the human clan would not be a big problem for a true half-demon body. Their talent would generally be extremely powerful. Looking at Sui, Merciless West said, "It is said that if the people of the monster race can step into the legendary powerful realm, they would be no different from the human clan, or even stronger than the human clan. There would be no problem for them to unite with the human clan." What kind of realm? Sui asked curiously. Merciless West glanced at Sui and said, "That kind of realm is a legend. With your current cultivation, you'd better cultivate well first. It seems that there are many dark horses in this sacred martial assembly. There are many talented and powerful people among the major forces." In the past 2 days, Merciless West had heard a lot of news outside. There were many talented and powerful young people among the major forces, such as Li Qingwei and Gong Qianxing, who were tested in the Heavenly Palace 2 days ago. They were both extraordinary. Hearing this, Suyi's eyes were secretly moved. There were indeed many powerful people among the young generation participating in this sacred martial assembly. Gong Qianxing and Li Qingwei were extraordinary. Sui estimated that although Ouyang Jinwei was powerful, Li Qingwei and Gong Qianxing might not necessarily be weaker than her. More importantly, the 2 young people who were present at the sacred mountain, especially the young man with light green hair, would be a powerful opponent. There was also Su Chun, who he met not long ago, who was unfathomable. Sui was also moved. This sacred martial assembly would not be too peaceful. Sui pondered in his heart. It seemed that, after the sacred martial assembly, he had to find a way to cultivate the great void immortal sea as soon as possible. He had to step into the Yuan Zhen realm as soon as possible. If he didn't succeed in cultivating the great void immortal sea as soon as possible, he wouldn't be able to truly step into the Yuan Zhen realm. In this sacred martial assembly, There would definitely be a lot of people from the younger generation who had truly stepped into the Yuan-Zhen realm. Although his combat strength wouldn't be below the first level of Yuan-Zhen realm, Su-Yi didn't dare to be 100% confident that he would be able to emerge victorious in the end. He could faintly feel that the long-haired man and Su Chern were his strongest opponents. "We're here." Unknowingly, Merciless West stopped in front of a large courtyard and raised her head to look at Su-Yi and said. At this moment, this place was much more secluded. They had left the noisy and bustling streets, but there were still bustling crowds queuing up. A huge circular building like a huge dome was built from the ground. It was dozens of feet tall and incomparably huge. It quietly nestled in a corner of the Zhongzhou city. The entire building was built with huge greenish-white stones, with ancient carvings on the surface. The grayish-white floor was uneven, with tiny cracks. Everything was mottled with an ancient aura. Here. Su-Yi sized up the place. The entrance was huge, and the huge circular building lacked the tackiness of the opulence. Instead, it appeared majestic and ancient. Quietly looking at it made one's heart tremble for no reason. It was as if one was facing a huge ancient beast that was in deep slumber. Don't look around. This place is not simple. It has been set up with the Mystic Gate illusory spirit world. Seeing Su-Yi's eyes looking around, Merciless West said softly. Mystic Gate illusory spirit world. Su-Yi's eyes suddenly brightened. No wonder he felt that this place was not normal. The aura was very obscure, making his heart tremble for no reason. This is an auction, and the items being auctioned are also important treasures. It's enough to ensure safety. At least, no one would dare to fight here. Moreover, this is the place of the Spirit Treasure Pavilion. Whoever wants to fight here should consider their status in the Spirit Treasure Pavilion. Merciless West said. Brother, you said that this is the Spirit Treasure Pavilion. Su-Yi suddenly raised his eyebrows. Spirit Treasure Pavilion, could it be the Spirit Treasure Pavilion? Of course it's the Spirit Treasure Pavilion. Don't tell me you don't even know where the Spirit Treasure Pavilion is? Merciless West looked at Su-Yi helplessly. Could it be that this kid did not even know where the Spirit Treasure Pavilion was? Chapter 741. Is the Lingbao Hall very powerful? Su-Yi asked. He was still wondering if the Lingbao Hall was the same as the one in the remote city of the barbarian demon forest. However, after careful consideration, it seemed unlikely. The Lingbao Hall is not ordinary. Its origin is mysterious, but its foundation is beyond your imagination. It is involved in all kinds of cultivation resources. It is said that it has branches in the 6 continents, 3 continents, and 1 sea. It is said that as long as it is a shop of the Lingbao Hall, no one dares to touch it. Just like the central continent. Not to mention the 5 sects and 3 factions, even the Saint Mountain has to give some face to it. Merciless West said. Is it that strong? Su-Yi's eyes widened. To have branches in all 6 continents, 3 continents, and 1 ocean, how powerful must they be? Even the sacred mountain had to give them face. This was enough to prove their foundation. For a trading company to be so powerful, it was surprising. This is only the auction house of the Lingbao Hall. There are several branches of the Lingbao Hall in the central continent. If the thing you are looking for is not available in the Lingbao Hall, it is unlikely that the other businesses have it. Merciless West said. The Lingbao Hall is not simple. Su-Yi said softly. He guessed that the Lingbao Hall in the barbarian demon forest might just have the same name. How could the Lingbao Hall in the remote city of the barbarian demon forest be related to this Lingbao Hall? I am very sorry. There are too many people in the auction this time. From now on, without an invitation and membership of the Lingbao Hall, no one can enter. Everyone, please bear with us. In front of the bustling crowd, a voice came out from the gate of the Lingbao Hall. There were many busy figures. They should be the disciples of the Lingbao Hall. They were arranging people to enter the auction. Alas, there are too many people. Without an invitation and membership of the Lingbao Hall, no one can enter. What a pity. It is said that there are many precious treasures in the auction this time. There are many other good things to be auctioned. Many regretful voices came out from the surroundings. They were dejected. They could not enter an auction of this level. Some people felt regretful and dejected, but the strange thing was that no one actually caused trouble. Su-yi released a little of his soul power, and it wasn't difficult for him to sense that there were many hidden auras in the bustling crowd. Many experts were hiding among them, and they were all here for the auction. There are so many people. Little handsome Su poked his head out from time to time and looked around curiously. However, Su-yi mercilessly stuffed him back into his clothes and warned him that if he dared to come out again, he would be locked up in the origin space. Hearing this, little handsome Su became obedient. However, he kept muttering that he had no human rights. You're just a bird. What human rights do you have? At most you have bird rights, Su-yi said in a low voice. I'm not a bird, I'm... Handsome Su stuck his head out to protest. Okay, I'll give you something good to eat later. Just stay here for now. Su-yi interrupted Handsome Su. Some people entered the Spirit Treasure Pavilion's auction, but there were also people who left regretfully. Without a Spirit Treasure Pavilion membership and an invitation letter, no one could enter. Many people who were queuing up automatically left, which made the queue a lot emptier. Suddenly, Su-yi's soul power sensed that there was a coldness behind him. Following the cold gaze behind him, Su-yi turned around and immediately saw the owner of the cold gaze. He was wearing a robe and looked to be in his 20s. There was an unfriendly chill in his eyes. It was Lu Xiaohu of the Heavenly Xian sect. He was a royal-level soul master and a third-grade soul controller. Beside Lu Xiaohu, Su-yi looked over and saw Elder Jian Wanyan and a few disciples who were tested in the Heavenly Palace. At the moment there were also several experts. There were more than 20 people in the group, but Gong Qianxing was not among them. Jian Wanyan also saw Su-yi and Merciless West. His eyes were complicated. He lowered his head and said something to the experts beside him. His eyes fell on Su-yi and Merciless West. Then, the experts also looked at Su-yi and Merciless West. Obviously, they were talking about Su-yi and Merciless West. Lu Xiaohu's eyes were even more complicated. At first, he did not put Su-yi in his eyes. He was extremely proud of his royal-level soul master. Who would have thought that even Gong Qianxing and Li Qingwei's soul master would be suppressed? Finally, he heard that Yi Su had severely injured Ouyang Jinwei of the Sacred Mountain. At this moment, his name had spread throughout the entire Zhongzhou. The more he looked at Su-yi, the uglier Lu Xiaohu's eyes became. Jealousy turned into hatred, and his eyes were cold. Glancing back, Su-yi did not pay attention. As long as Lu Xiaohu did not provoke him, it was fine. He had never seen him as an opponent. The people in front of the line were getting fewer and fewer. Not long after, it was Su-yi and Merciless West's turn. Please show your invitation letter or membership card of the Spirit Treasures Pavilion, asked a disciple of the Spirit Treasures Pavilion. He was thin, and his eyes were neither servile nor overbearing. He was less than 40 years old, and it was obvious that he had seen a lot. His eyes were clear and bright. Su-yi looked at the disciples of the Spirit Treasures Pavilion in front of him. The youngest was in his 20s, and the oldest was in his 40s. Their auras were not simple, and the thin disciple in the lead was even more intimidating. Yes. Merciless West nodded and took out a palm-sized, pale golden invitation letter. It was delicate and had the words Spirit Treasures Pavilion written on it. Please. Picking up the invitation letter, the disciple of the Spirit Treasures Pavilion nodded and smiled. The disciple behind him immediately handed a jade plate to Merciless West and said politely, "VIP, please come in and take a seat. If there is anything you don't know, the disciples of the Spirit Treasures Pavilion will help you." Merciless West nodded and took the jade plate. He turned around and smiled proudly at Sui. He had put in a lot of effort to get this invitation letter. Anyone who could enter the Spirit Treasures Pavilion's auction at this time would not be simple. Sui smiled helplessly. He could only follow Merciless West into the Spirit Treasures Pavilion's auction. He wanted to broaden his horizons at this level. At this moment, the thin disciple of the Spirit Treasures Pavilion stopped Sui with a smile. "Sorry, only one person can enter with an invitation letter. Do you have an invitation letter?" "No." Sui shook his head. Merciless West was also surprised. He asked the disciple, "Can't I bring one person with me?" Chapter 742. Humph! A cold snort was intentionally emitted from Lu Xiao, whose throat, when he saw Sui being obstructed, he could not help but feel extremely pleased in his heart. Merciless West was also helpless. An invitation could only allow one person to enter. He had spent a lot of effort on this invitation. It was too late to get another one. "Forget it. Brother, you go in. I'll go back and wait for you." Sui was disappointed that he couldn't enter the auction, but there was nothing he could do. "Get out of the way if you don't have an invitation. Don't block the way," Lu Xiaohu said. With a group of experts from the Heavenly Xian sect beside him, he was emboldened. So what if he was talented? After all, he was from a small sect. Not everyone could enter the Lingbao Pavilion's auction. Hearing Lu Xiaohu's words, Sui glanced at Jian Wanyan and the other experts from the Heavenly Xian sect. He frowned slightly, but he didn't pay much attention to them and walked to the side. "Humph!" Lu Xiaohu was very pleased and sneered. Seeing that kid being defeated, he felt inexplicably pleased. Jian Wanyan and the others stepped forward and took out a special invitation letter and showed it to them. This invitation was obviously different from the one from Merciless West. New Chapter TQI. Everyone, please. The VIP box has been arranged. Seeing this special invitation, the thin disciple of the Lingbao Pavilion immediately arranged for others to lead the way and personally led Jian Wanyan and the others in. Everyone from the Heavenly Xian sect entered in a single file. Lu Xiaohu walked past Sui and glanced at him with a smug look of disdain. Sui smiled bitterly. Big sects and individual cultivators were indeed different. "Is this the Lingbao Pavilion's auction?" A voice sounding a little excited. This voice was very familiar. Sui looked over when he heard the voice and his heart could not help but tremble violently. A group of people came. Walking at the front was a teenager who seemed to be only 13 or 14 years old. He was wearing a fitting black robe. He had sword-like eyebrows, phoenix-like eyes, a straight nose and thin lip. His clear eyes seemed to be free of distracting thoughts and vulgarity. He was very delicate. Looking at this teenager, how could Sui not recognize him? If it wasn't Situ Muyang, who else could it be? Behind Situ Muyang, there was a short figure. Although this figure was short and small, only the size of an 8 or 9-year-old child, his face did indeed appear slightly old. The faint wrinkles on his face seemed to be traces left behind by the passage of time, and he appeared to be in his 60s or 70s. His long robe was extremely fitting, and his black hair was mixed with some white hair. For no reason, he naturally possessed an extremely great aura. Elder Su. When this figure walked over, Su Yi's mind suddenly became absent-minded. He subconsciously wanted to go forward and bow. This was Elder Su. After the Divine Sword Valley, Elder Su caused a ruckus in Xinjian Gate to stand up for him. He also personally went to the barbarian city's Su family to treat the old man's injuries. It was all because he had mentioned it to Elder Su. This kind of old man usually looked serious and unapproachable. He had a taut face to everyone. However, Su-yi knew very well what Elder Su had done for him. Many gazes fell on Su-yi. This made Su-yi come back to his senses. He forcefully suppressed the fluctuations in his heart and did not reveal any traces. Following the gazes, there were many familiar figures in the group. Elder Duan Yurong and Elder Mei Huaye were among them. Gongqi, Sakura Asaka, Ryugan River, O Luo Gu Chinyu, Si Shiyuan, and many other familiar disciples. These familiar figures made Su-yi's heart uncontrollably fluctuate. Although entering Xinjiang Gate was completely a coincidence, Su-yi had never had a good impression of the big sections. However, at this moment, seeing these familiar figures, even though some unpleasant things had happened in Xinjiang Gate, Su-yi had unknowingly placed Xinjiang Gate in the depths of his heart. Looking at these familiar figures, Su-yi's eyes moved. However, there were also some young figures that Su-yi did not recognize. Although these young figures were also very young, their overall age was a few years older than Ryugan River, O Luo, and the others. They also had Xinjiang Gate badges on their bodies. From the invisible aura that leaked out from their bodies, they were quite extraordinary. Su-yi guessed that these young disciples might be the previous batch of disciples from Xinjiang Gate. They were also here for the Sacred Martial Assembly. After all, the Sacred Martial Assembly's requirement was to be under 25 years old. Many of the previous batch's disciples met this requirement. It's him, Bawang Sex Isu. In the crowd outside the city lord's mansion, Sakura Asaka, Gongqi, Ryugan River, Situ Muyang, and the others had all seen Su-yi with their own eyes. At this moment, seeing this valiant young man also present, they were all inwardly moved. The Suruga elder also saw Su-yi. His eyes moved slightly, but they were calm and deep. His calm eyes looked at Su-yi and Merciless West. Finally, his gaze fell on Su-yi, as if he wanted to see through Su-yi for no reason. Such a gaze made Su-yi have no choice but to hide his aura with all his might. However, his heart was filled with deep guilt. Everyone, please. The VIP box has been arranged. Elder Duan Yuerong stepped forward and showed a special invitation letter. The thin disciple of Lingbao Pavilion was very enthusiastic and courteous, and let the other disciples of Lingbao Pavilion lead the way. Many familiar figures walked past Su-yi. Su-yi slightly lowered his eyes, and some waves rose in his heart. I know who you are. Are you unable to enter the auction? Otherwise, why don't you come with us? Situ Muyang stopped in front of Su-yi. A pair of clear eyes stared at Su-yi, as if he could see that Su-yi was unable to enter the auction. Who is that young man? Why is the Xinjiang Gate's disciple so polite? At this moment there were many people lining up. Seeing that the Xinjiang Gate's disciple was so polite to the young man, they couldn't help but feel a little surprised. They curiously sized up Su-yi. Zhongzhou City was too big. At this moment, the number of people gathered in Zhongzhou City was a terrifying number that couldn't be estimated. Although many people outside the city lord's mansion had seen Su-yi, compared to the entire Zhongzhou City, it was nothing. No one recognized Su-yi. Thank you for your kindness. I'll think of another way. Su-yi lowered his voice and smiled slightly. All right then. Situ Muyang's gaze was fixed on Su-yi. There seemed to be some surprise in his eyes. Then, he secretly moved his eyes and felt a little puzzled. He followed the Xinjiang Gate's disciples into the auction. You should know the Xinjiang Gate's disciples, right? Merciless West's voice fell into Su-yi's ears. Looking at the scene just now, he could guess that Su-yi should know the Xinjiang Gate's disciples. Chapter 743. Looks like I have to think of other ways to get you into the auction. Merciless West was a little embarrassed. He thought that he could bring Su-yi into the auction since he had the invitation letter. Who knew that he would be the only one who could enter? Brother, you can go in first. It's fine if I can't. Su-yi shook his head. The auction today was unusually lively. It seemed that all the major forces had come. It would not be easy to get in. Merciless West was determined to get the Nebula Ganoderma today. Naturally, he would not miss it. Merciless West was also in a difficult position. In the end, he could only smile bitterly and say to Su-yi, "Then I'll go in first." Su-yi nodded and smiled bitterly. He had only come to the auction to broaden his horizons. There was nothing he could do if he could not get in. He did not lose anything. Shiwuching nodded, feeling a little helpless and awkward. He then entered the auction house. More and more people came up and showed their invitation letters. There were also people who showed a shining silver triangular card with many exquisite patterns engraved on it. They could also enter the auction. Su-yi wanted to leave. He could not enter the auction, but he could walk around the city. Looking at the card, he was moved. It was very familiar. Instantly, Su-yi took out his interspatial bag. After searching for a while, a card that was shining with a black light appeared in his hand. The card was cool like jade. It was exactly the same as the shiny silver cards that people kept showing, except for the light. 2D latest, Chapter XM section / Super. The cards that people kept showing were all silver. However, Su-yi's card was black. The others were almost the same. The cards were all triangular in shape and had many exquisite patterns on them. However, the black card in Su-yi's hand had more complicated patterns. Holding the black card in his hand, Su-yi looked at it seriously for the first time. The material was like jade and seemed indestructible. It was cool to the touch and gave off a mysterious feeling. This was the black card that Su-yi had received from Lingbao Pavilion's Lan Yelyan in the Barbarian Demon Forest. She had said that with this card, one would be able to enjoy a significant discount when purchasing medicinal ingredients and elixirs from Lingbao Pavilion. Looking at the black card in his hand, it was very similar to the silver card those people had shown. The two Spirit Treasure Pavilions also had the same name. Su-yi couldn't help but think that perhaps the Spirit Treasure Pavilions in the Barbarian Demon Forest Relay City and this Spirit Treasure Pavilions had some relationship. Perhaps this black card could also allow one to enter. After hesitating for a moment, Su-yi decided to give it a try. "I'm sorry, you can't enter without an invitation." The skinny middle-aged man from Lingbao Pavilion was quite polite when he saw Su-yi speak again. After all, the disciple from Shunjian Gate seemed to be very polite to this young man. "I'm just asking. Can I enter with this black card?" After saying that, Su-yi tentatively handed the black card in his hand to the skinny middle-aged man. When the black card appeared, the skinny young man subconsciously glanced at it. His originally calm face suddenly trembled as if he had been electrocuted. His body also trembled violently. The skinny middle-aged man took the black card from Su-yi with both hands. His hands were trembling as he carefully examined Su-yi's black card. His expression completely changed. When he looked at Su-yi again, the skinny middle-aged man's eyes were filled with shock and awe. He respectfully bowed and said to Su-yi, "Sir, please wait for a moment. I'll be right back." After instructing a few disciples from Lingbao Pavilion to wait on him, the skinny middle-aged man hurriedly left. "What's going on? Why aren't we allowed to enter?" The entrance of the auction house was suddenly blocked. A few disciples from Lingbao Pavilion respectfully surrounded Su-yi. The others who had their invitations were also temporarily blocked outside. Many voices of dissatisfaction came from the crowd. "Everyone, I'm sorry. Please wait for a moment." A disciple from Lingbao Pavilion spoke politely to everyone. "What's going on?" Su-yi was very puzzled. He could see that the skinny middle-aged man from Lingbao Pavilion was very surprised after seeing the black card. Soon, a commotion broke out in the auction hall. Many people walked out of the auction hall with shocked faces and hurried to Su Yi's side. There were more than 10 people. An old man who looked like he was in his 60s walked out. His whole body was full of meat. His face was round and without any wrinkles. It was rosy and glowing. He looked very energetic. His eyes were very bright and full of spirit. They also revealed a kind of shrewdness. "I didn't know that you were here. Please forgive me. This old man is Qin-san. I'm the deputy shopkeeper of Lingbao Pavilion in Zhongzhou City. You can also call me Qin Lao-san. May I know your name?" The chubby old man hurried forward. Obviously, he already knew that the black card came from Su Yi. There was clearly some surprise in Qin-san's eyes as he looked at Su Yi. However, he quickly regained his composure and did not reveal anything. Su Yi was very surprised. He sized up Qin-san in front of him. He looked chubby and his aura was concealed. However, from the experts that Su Yi had met recently, it was enough to confirm that Qin-san was definitely an expert of the Origin Emperor realm. Moreover, he wouldn't be an ordinary Origin Emperor realm expert. Among this group, there were a few concealed auras that had reached the Origin Emperor realm. The rest were all at the Origin Void realm. Such a lineup of Lingbao Pavilion made Su Yi gasp in surprise. Compared to the Yutian Palace in Zhongzhou City, it wasn't inferior. It seemed like Merciless West wasn't exaggerating at all. This Lingbao Pavilion wasn't simple. Looking at the experts of Lingbao Pavilion in front of him and the deputy shopkeeper coming personally, Su Yi guessed that it must be because of the black card in his hand. "Please forgive me, my lord. I have eyes but failed to recognize Mount Tai. I didn't know that you were here. Please forgive me." The face of the skinny middle-aged man from Lingbao Pavilion was a little pale. He kept apologizing. How could he have thought that the young man in front of him would actually have a black card of Lingbao Pavilion? He was actually a VIP with a black card. "I don't seem to have any dispute with Lingbao Pavilion. Are you sure you didn't get the wrong person?" Su Yi was more confused than anyone else. He couldn't help thinking that Lingbao Pavilion might have mistaken him for someone else. Qin-san was also a little confused. Could such a young man really have a black card of Lingbao Pavilion? It was obviously a little hard for him to believe. One should know that a black card of Lingbao Pavilion would attract countless experts like a flock of duck. Any VIP who could have a black card of Lingbao Pavilion would be a true authority or an overlord of a region. They were powerful soul-controlling masters, alchemists, and blacksmiths. It wasn't an exaggeration to say that even the elders of the 5 sects and 3 factions of Zhongzhou didn't have the qualifications to have a black card. "Does this black card belong to you, my lord?" Chapter 744. Although the black card of the Lingbao Pavilion only looked at the card and not the person, the Lingbao Pavilion naturally had ways to find the real owner of the black card. There were not many people who could issue the black card of the Lingbao Pavilion. "That's right." Su Yi nodded his head. Hearing this, the group of experts from the Lingbao Pavilion were secretly moved. Did this black card really belong to this young man? That was enough to represent his true identity and origin. Once this was spread out, it would probably shake the entire central state. "May I ask, sir, where did you get this black card?" Qin-san suppressed the shock in his heart and asked again. "Relay City in the Barbarian Demon Forest. There is also the Lingbao Pavilion there. I don't know if it is the same as your Lingbao Pavilion. A Miss Lon gave it to me." Su Yi did not hide it. He also wanted to know if the Lingbao Pavilion had mistaken him for someone else. Relay City in the Barbarian Demon Forest, Lingbao Pavilion, Miss Lon. Hearing this, Qin-san's face was already twitching. His body could not help but shiver. He stared at Su Yi and said, "May I ask, sir, was it half a year ago?" "Around that time." Su Yi nodded his head. Calculating the time, it was not even a year. Please forgive me, sir. The best VIP room has been arranged for you. There will be a separate VIP passage for you. Qin-san looked at Su-yi and no longer had any doubts. He reached out his hand and gestured. The Lingbao Pavilion only recognizes cards and not people. Moreover, I am sure that the black card belongs to you. Qn genuine H initial H issued Qin-san was very sure. According to the information he had received, that person was indeed in the dark forest during that period of time. He did not know why that person would give this young man a black card. This was not something he was qualified to care about. However, this young man was undoubtedly the owner of the black card. This was enough to represent his status. He was not someone he could offend. A black card VIP was the most honorable VIP in the entire Lingbao Pavilion. Su-yi was still in disbelief. A black card obtained from Lan Balian actually had such great prestige. This black card seemed to be much more valuable than the special invitations of the Xinjian Gate and the Tianxian sect. Even the assistant manager of the Lingbao Hall came to pick him up in person. Su-yi hesitated for a moment. Regardless of whether or not the Spirit Treasure Pavilion had made a mistake, it was still a good thing for him to go and see the auction. Under Qin-san's personal guidance, Su-yi entered the auction house. This caused quite a bit of discussion. Everyone could tell that this young man was highly valued by the Spirit Treasures Pavilion. They wondered what kind of background he had. Inside the auction house, Su-yi had just entered when it became noisy. The enormous auction hall was circular in shape, with layers upon layers of seats surrounding it. At this moment there was a dense crowd of people everywhere. The venue was brightly lit and dazzling, and it was packed with people. At a glance there were over 10,000 people. None of the people who could enter today's auction were ordinary people. If they weren't experts, then they must have a powerful background. There were several layers of seats, and the top layer was surrounded by many private rooms. Each private room was separated, and it was very private. There weren't many private rooms, and those who could enter them were probably not ordinary people. There was a VIP passage that led directly to the top layer, so there was no need to go through the crowd. Su-yi was personally led to the top layer by Qin-san and many other experts of the Spirit Treasures Pavilion. Why is that kid here? Although the private rooms on the top layer were good, someone saw Su-yi. It was Lu Xiaohu of the Tianxian sect. The people of the Tianxian sect had also just reached the top layer. Lu Xiaohu was about to enter the private room when he saw Su-yi being escorted by a group of experts of the Spirit Treasures Pavilion. They were obviously very polite and courteous. In the end, they respectfully sent him to the best private room in the middle. Su-yi also saw Lu Xiaohu. He was in a private room not far away, so he didn't pay much attention to him. The interior of the private room was very elegantly decorated. There were fresh fruits and wine, and it faced the auction stage below. It could be clearly seen from above. A curtain was hung and one could see outside. However, if one wanted to see inside, it would be much more difficult. Su-yi was very satisfied with the private room. However, when he looked at the crowd below, he didn't see Merciless West, who had already entered. "Can I find my friend from just now?" Su-yi asked Qin-san, hoping to find Merciless West. Qin-san nodded and immediately ordered the thin middle-aged man from just now to find her. "Sir, you have the Spirit Treasures Pavilion's black card. When the time comes to auction, the Spirit Treasures Pavilion will not charge service fees. During the auction, black card VIPs can bid without worry. If you have any inconveniences, just send the balance to any branch of the Spirit Treasures Pavilion within a year. If you have any other requests, the Spirit Treasures Pavilion will do our best to fulfill them." Qin-san told Su-yi that the black card of the Spirit Treasures Pavilion was one of the benefits that the Spirit Treasures Pavilion could provide. After hearing this, Su-yi couldn't help but tremble. He didn't think that a card that he didn't care too much about would have such great prestige. Most importantly, the auction allowed people to bid as they pleased. If they didn't have money, they could buy it on credit, as long as they paid it back within a year. There are such benefits. What if the Spirit Treasures Pavilion meets people who don't pay? Sui smiled and pretended to be relaxed. Judging from the auction, he knew that the items would not be cheap. If everyone was like this, the Lingbao Pavilion would have suffered a huge loss if they reneged on their debt. Haha, after hearing Sui's words, Qin-san couldn't help but laugh. He thought that Sui was joking and said, "Sir, please don't joke. How could a VIP with the black card of the Spirit Treasures Pavilion do that?" After that, Qin-san took his leave. He still had to prepare for the auction, leaving the Spirit Treasures Pavilion's disciples to serve him. After Sui expressed that he wasn't used to it, he didn't force him and told Sui. At this moment, the people in the box on the top floor were all people from the 5 sects and 3 factions, as well as the Sacred Mountain. In addition, there were also people from the Central Province's major forces and authorities. There were even people from the Yutian Palace. After Qin-san left, Sui was still a little absent-minded. This black card actually had such great prestige. "Kid, how did you?" While Sui was still in a daze, Merciless West's voice sounded. He was led into the box by the thin middle-aged man. Along the way, the Spirit Treasures Pavilion's disciple said that Sui had invited him. Merciless West was still skeptical. This was the box on the top floor. He didn't have the qualifications to come even with the invitation letter he spent so much effort to get. Now that he entered the box and saw that Sui was really there, Merciless West couldn't help but be a little surprised. It really was this kid. This box seemed to be the best box in the entire auction. How could he not be surprised? Chapter 745. It's a long story. I have this black card with me, and it seems to be useful in the Lingbao Pavilion. Sui naturally had nothing to hide from Merciless West. He took out the black card in his hand, and wanted Merciless West to check the origin of the black card. When Merciless West saw the black card, her eyes suddenly trembled violently. She took the black card from Sui's hand and looked at it carefully. Her eyes changed greatly, and she looked at Sui as if she had seen a ghost. She asked, "Is this yours?" "Of course it's mine." Sui nodded with certainty. Looking at Sui's affirmative answer, Merciless West had to re-evaluate Sui. This kid actually had the black card of the Lingbao Pavilion. Could he really be a rogue cultivator? Looking at Merciless West's suspicious eyes, Sui had to explain, "It's indeed mine. A friend of the Lingbao Pavilion gave it to me. I don't know what it is, but I didn't expect it to be so important." Merciless West had to believe that if the black card did not belong to Sui, the Lingbao Pavilion would naturally have a way to find out. If the Lingbao Pavilion confirmed it, then it must be true. "What is this black card?" Sui asked Merciless West. It seemed that Merciless West really did recognize the black card. The black card of the Lingbao Pavilion. Merciless West looked at Sui and secretly rolled her eyes. Her heart was in turmoil. So this kid did not know what the black card was at all. Later, Merciless West told Sui that the Lingbao Pavilion was unfathomable and had a deep foundation. It was said that the Lingbao Pavilion had a total of 4 types of VIP cards, which were the silver card, the gold card, the black card, and the supreme spiritual card. Generally speaking, it was already very difficult to become a silver card VIP of the Lingbao Hall. Having a silver card of the Lingbao Hall represented not only power, but also status. As for the golden card VIP status of Lingbao Pavilion, if a Origin Emperor Realm cultivator could become a golden card VIP of Lingbao Pavilion, it was enough to show off. Specifically, even the elders of Sacred Mountain were not qualified to have a golden card of Lingbao Pavilion. As for the black card of the Lingbao Hall, Such a VIP card represented more than just status in the entire Lingbao Hall. What they could enjoy was not as simple as buying and selling cultivation resources. It could be said that a black card from the Lingbao Hall was enough to make all the powerful cultivators in the world scramble for it. If you need to find some kind of treasure, the Lingbao Pavilion will send it to you as soon as possible. If the Lingbao Pavilion does not have it, the Lingbao Pavilion will use all our resources to find it as soon as possible. There are all kinds of benefits. Merciless West returned the black card to Su Yi and said to Su Yi with a shocked expression. As an alchemist and soul controller, the black card of the Lingbao Pavilion was irresistible to him. Unfortunately, it was difficult for even him to obtain a golden card of the Lingbao Pavilion, let alone a black card. It seems like this is really a good thing. Joy appeared in Su Yi's eyes. No matter what Lan Baiyan's identity was, this black card was real. He immediately kept it in his hand. It seemed that with this black card in the future, it would be much more convenient in the Spirit Treasures Pavilion. Merciless West looked at Su Yi and calmed down after a while. Anyway, he was already used to it. The lad in front of him always gave him a feeling that he could not see through him. There's no one here. Can I take a breather? Su Xiaoshui poked his head out of Su Yi's bosom and only dared to speak when he felt that there was no one else around. Su Yi could only agree helplessly. It was not easy to keep this little guy obedient for so long. There are many experts here. It seems like they are all here for that treasure. Shi Wuqing calmed down and sat upright in the box, looking around. Just now when he came up from below, he had sensed a lot of powerful auras and even saw a few familiar faces. In addition to the experts from the Holy Mountain, the Imperial Palace, the 5 sects and 3 factions, there were also many other experts present. It was destined that today's auction would be a fierce battle without any trace of gunpowder. I just want to broaden my horizons. Su Yi smiled faintly. He did not have any expectations. After all, it had nothing to do with him. Walala! The entire auction house was bustling with noise and excitement. There were people everywhere. Suddenly, in the middle of the auction, many figures walked out in a line from the huge auction stage. Light shone from above the auction stage and shone on the auction stage. Suddenly, the auction stage was shining brightly. Such a scene also caused the clamorous noise in the surroundings to abruptly calm down. Numerous gazes fell on the auction stage in unison. The auction was finally about to begin. A group of people walked up to the auction stage. Disciples of the Lingbao Pavilion stood orderly on both sides of the stage. Their faces were solemn and their auras seemed to be able to freeze the air. Any one of them was probably an expert. An old man walked up to the auction stage. He was about 50 years old and had a medium build. His black hair was tied up in a bun and he wore a loose robe. His eyes were bright and there was a smile in his eyes. He went up to the stage and clasped his fists. His slow voice was mixed with yuan qi and immediately spread in the auction hall. I am here to represent the Lingbao Pavilion to thank everyone for coming to the auction. I will be the host of today's auction and will not waste your precious time. Let the auction begin. Buzz! The words mixed with yuan qi spread in the auction hall. It was clear enough to fall into everyone's ears. Following a melodious bell sound, the auction hall became completely silent. A disciple of the Lingbao Pavilion walked out from behind the auction stage. His eyes were solemn as he placed a palm-sized jade box on the auction stage. Everyone present was a martial artist. Although they were far from the auction stage, they could still see it clearly. Suddenly, light shone from the top of the auction hall, shining brightly on the auction stage. Many people held their breaths in anticipation. They did not know what the first item that the Lingbao Pavilion would take out for auction today would be. Under everyone's gaze, the old man walked up to the auction stage and opened the jade box. Suddenly, a golden pill appeared. It was shining brightly and emitted a precious light. The fragrance of the pill filled the entire auction hall. 7 Treasure Illusionary Spirit Pill. Look at 0W Edition 9 Chapter = Section 6. When the pill was clearly seen, many people could not help but whisper in surprise. Middle Yellow Grade 7 Treasure Illusionary Spirit Pill. As for its effects, I think many of you already know. If a LV9 Yuan Zhen Realm martial artist takes it, there is an 80% chance that he or she will directly step into the Yuan Zhen realm. The starting price is 10,000 2-star origin stones. Each bid must be at least 1,000 2-star origin stones. Now everyone can start bidding. The old man's voice slowly spread out. He did not say anything unnecessary and did not want to waste anyone's time. Many people knew the effects of the 7 Treasure Illusionary Spirit Pill. There was no need to introduce it. Middle Yellow Grade 7 Treasure Illusionary Spirit Pill. Chapter 746. It smells so good, I really want to eat it. Su Xiaoshui stuck his head out and looked at the 7 Treasure Void Spirit Pill on the auction stage through the curtain. His little mouth was smacking and his saliva was about to flow out. The 7 Treasure Void Spirit Pill is not easy to refine. It will be very useful when you break through to the Origin Void Realm. Do you want it? Merciless West asked Su Yi tentatively. Forget it. Su Yi shook his head. Not to mention that he was still far from the Origin Void Realm, even if the starting price was 12,000 2-star Source Stones. He couldn't afford it. 12,000 2-star Source Stones was equivalent to 1 million Star Source Stones. Moreover, this was only the starting price. The starting price was 12,000 2-star Source Stones, which was equivalent to 100,000 Star Source Stones. Such a price was undoubtedly an astronomical figure to Su Yi at the moment. 15,000 2-star Source Stones. 16,000 2-star Source Stones. 25,000 2-star Source Stones. For Su Yi, this was an astronomical figure, but this 7 Treasure Void Spirit Pill was quickly sold by people who kept bidding, which proved the value of the 7 Treasure Void Spirit Pill. Many of the experts present didn't need the 7 Treasure Void Spirit Pill, but they could prepare it for the juniors of their clan. After more than 10 rounds of bidding, the price had reached 25,000 2-star Source Stones. 38,000 2-star Source Stones. Is there any higher bid? On the auction stage, the old man's voice resounded throughout the auction house. Someone had already bid 38,000 2-star Source Stones. This price was not low. 38,000 2-star Source Stones was equivalent to 3,800,000 Star Source Stones. If it was converted to 3-star Source Stones, it would be 380 pieces. It was equivalent to the 380 Source Stones that the Sacred Mountain had obtained from the Barbarian City. Once, twice, thrice. On the auction stage, the old man looked around and set the price 3 times. Finally, the 7 Treasure Void Spirit Pill was won by one of the people in the lower seat. Su Yi noticed that no one in the VIP box on the top floor made a bid for this mid-tier yellow grade 7 Treasure Spirit Void Pill. From the looks of it, a large sect was indeed a large sect. If they were not here for a 7 Treasure Hollow Spirit Pill, then they must be waiting for something to appear. After that, another disciple of the Spirit Treasures Pavilion stepped forward and took out a high-grade spirit artifact sword. The starting price was 50,000 2-star Origin Stones, and it attracted many burning gazes from the crowd. For a weapon, every level up was a huge leap forward. A high-grade spirit weapon was already close to the level of a Tao artifact. Its value was much higher than a mid-grade yellow-grade elixir. Someone fought for it, and it was eventually won by the person seated below with a bid of 9,000 2-star Origin Stones. Following that, 3 sets of high-level King-grade martial skills, a set of mid-King-grade cultivation technique, and a number of yellow-grade medicinal pills appeared on the auction stage. There was even a meteorite from outer space, which was said to be a treasure for refining weapons. The starting price was 18 two-star origin stones. It could be said that each item was rare and extraordinary. The auction was completely heated, and the atmosphere began to ignite. Then, a beast-head golden saber appeared. It was said to be left by a strong master hundreds of years ago, and it had reached the level of a Tao artifact. Suddenly, the whole auction had completely reached a small level. A Tao artifact weapon left by a strong master hundreds of years ago caused the people in the VIP box on the top floor to scramble to bid. Tao artifact level. Su Yi's eyes moved, but he did not care much. He was purely watching the fun. Su Yi's starry sky soul was at the level of a saint artifact. Although it seemed to have not fully recovered and was damaged, it was not comparable to this Tao artifact level weapon. After a fierce competition, the atmosphere was hot. Finally, this Tao artifact level beast-head golden saber was sold for a terrifying number of origin stones. It was won by a VIP box on the top floor. A disciple of the Lingbao Pavilion went up to the stage and took the beast-head golden saber down. After the auction ended, the bidders could go to the Lingbao Pavilion to take away the auctioned items. Another item was put on the auction stage. This item was carefully carried by two people. It was squarish and half the height of a person. It was covered with a black curtain. Inside, a faint light could be seen spreading out. It was faintly discernible. On the auction stage, the old man looked around with a smile in his eyes. His voice spread out and he said, "Next, I will grandly introduce the next item to be auctioned. It is a treasure of the monster illusionary realm that has passed the initial tribulation." At this point, the old man stopped talking and his eyes flashed. Swoosh, swoosh. When the old man's voice fell, in the whole auction house, an obscure aura suddenly fell directly on the black curtain on the auction stage. Waves of obscure auras fluctuated, as if they wanted to pry into the object that was covered by the cloth. Could it be the nebula Ganoderma? Su Yi felt the aura fluctuations on Merciless West's body, and his eyes suddenly narrowed. He reckoned that it should be the nebula Ganoderma that Merciless West was determined to get this time. The nebula Ganoderma that had passed the initial tribulation and reached the first level of the monster illusionary realm. Su Yi's heart was also greatly moved. Although the nebula Ganoderma was not said to be stronger than the blood jasper spirit ginseng, it was still a treasure of the same level as the blood jasper spirit ginseng. It would not be inferior to the blood jasper spirit ginseng. The old man on the auction stage slowly looked around the whole auction house. Then, he lifted the black curtain on the auction stage behind him. Suddenly, a dazzling light spread out. The light spread out like starlight, and it instantly illuminated the whole auction house. It was as if they had fallen into the galaxy. The starlight fluctuated, and a tempting spirit medicine fragrance spread out in the surroundings in an instant, causing people to feel relaxed and happy. Whoosh whoosh, the gazes of the whole auction house were fixed on the auction stage in unison. In the VIP room, numerous gazes and obscure auras swept past in unison. Su Yi's gaze also immediately saw the dazzling object under the black curtain. It was a transparent jade box that was completely made of jade. Many symbols and beast patterns were inscribed on it, and it was flickering with light and releasing an aura. This was a type of seal restriction. And in this transparent jade box, there was a stalk of Ganoderma that was the size of 2 palms. It seemed to be wrapped in starlight, and as the light was released, it was as if a star was sealed in the jade box. Gulp gulp, Su Xiaoshuai's stomach made a gulp-gulp sound, and his saliva fell into Su Yi's arms. He could not help but say, "Nebula Ganoderma, this is a nebula Ganoderma. It's good stuff, it's a treasure. I want to eat it." "Behave yourself." Su Yi patted Su Xiaoshuai's little head. At this moment, although the top floor of the private room was separated, There were experts from various sects sitting inside. He could not expose this little fellow's true identity. Otherwise, compared to this nebula Ganoderma, who knew how many times more people's gazes would be burning. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Nights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.